What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman, once again here to recap everything that we saw from this week in the NFL. Dalton, got an exciting slate to review here. We're going to get through all the top fives for every single team, and we're going to tell you the stat that told the story, give you the most impressive, most disappointing, all of that great stuff. Buddy, how are you doing, my friend?
We're good.
You are so slammed with work. I want people to know this. This man is so dedicated to the craft of the NFL show and the college football show that you didn't even come into the office to watch the games yesterday.
Yeah, no, the college show, we're actually up in the record on the college previews this week. We're going with 13. It's another absolutely loaded slate, and there were just a couple of games that Max just couldn't help but not preview. I'm going to blame him for it for sure.
Max was at the office, but he was slaving away on the keyboard.
But he's not doing this.
I could hear him. He types loudly, by the way.
He does.
So do I. So I can, Max, I can make fun of you for that because I also type loudly. But he was over there just hammering those keys.
That's all he's doing right. He doesn't even have this on. We're talking about him. I guarantee he's not watching this.
Well, we appreciate everybody who is watching this, getting involved in the live chat here as we are reviewing every game that we saw here in Week 5. We got one more to go in Monday Night Football. We'll chat about that as the show goes on here, but appreciate everybody watching, especially those of you who are live. We get to go back and forth with you guys as we review all of these games and give you the top 5 graded players for every single game. If you guys want to see these for yourself, independent of this show, best way to do that is a PFF Plus subscription. PFF NFL Show 25. That's the promo that you can use if you go to subscribe.pff.com. Get yourself 25% off that PFF sub so you can see all the numbers that we're talking about here on the show, plus so much more. So get 25% off if you don't have one. PFF NFL Show 25, all one word. That's how you get that. Let's start with Sunday Night Football. I think we have to, right?
Have to.
Drake may arrive.
We may have to. I'm starting early. Sorry, Eli.
I think we already got a boo from the production suite, which, again, was so loud that I could hear it through the soundproof glass. So You're doing fantastic here 5 minutes into the show. I believe it was on the Bill Simmons podcast where it was either him or his guest who said that prior to this week, to be very fair to them, Drake May might just be Drake May be. I don't know if he may be anymore. He may be
the guy
for them. We might have to separate those letters a little bit to declare what we have here with Drake May to discuss what was a thrilling New England Patriots win in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players that we had for the New England Patriots as the winners of this game. Number 1 on the list, returning back to Buffalo. The best performance for any wide receiver that used to be a Bill that came back to play the Bills is Stephon Diggs at the top of that list with an elite 93.0.
And the highest graded game of his career.
No way.
Yep.
All right.
Had to check it.
And we're going to break down that even further because I do want to get into exactly what Stephon Diggs did last night on Sunday Night Football. Linebacker Robert Spillane, one of their big free agents, number 2 on the list with a 90.3, another elite grade there. Mike Onwenu, their guard, 83.4. Cornerback Marcus Jones, an 83.1. And then number 5 to round things out, Karius Tonga with a 77.2. Drake May in this game wasn't perfect, but this is a pretty dang good grade still. 79.7 against that Bills defense in Buffalo. On Buffalo's side of things, their tight end Dalton Kincaid, he's having a great year. 87.2 overall grade in this one. Linebacker Shaq Thompson. That's right, Shaq Thompson. Some people wrote him off. Oh, he's not in Carolina anymore. He's washed. I don't know about that. Had a pretty good game last night on Sunday Night Football. 83.8. Showed that he still got some life with him in his career. Tight end Jackson Hawes with an 82.6. Edge rusher Greg Rousseau a 74.2. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel 71.3. And then Josh Allen in this one a 77.5. Dalton, as we always do, let's start with the stat that told the story. What do you got here?
I think the big news here, and I think it's kind of the obvious for as much as we usually dig into things, is that Drake May.
Oh, I get it.
Drake May.
Dig into things.
Oh, see, I wasn't even trying for that one. See that? You got me. You win that one. I wasn't even trying for that one. Jeez. Wow. We're just used to it. It's just going to be a constant. This is going to be 2.5 hours.
So many boos in the chat already.
Wait, we're going to have 2.5 hours of just awful dialect here. Anyway, Drake May walked into Buffalo and outdueled Josh Allen. That is the story. It really is. And you look at New England, 8 explosive passes in this game. That's the first time in 3 years they've had 8 explosive passes in a game. He was 7 of 9 on throws, 10 or more air yards down the field. Play action game was also working really well despite the run game being a bit inefficient. But I think that's really the story. And you look at those 10-plus yard throws, that's 7 of 9, 90 passing grade there. Drake May, you said it wasn't necessarily perfect. No, but is it going to be perfect when you go into Buffalo? Pretty much never. Trevor, this was as good as you could ask for from a second-year quarterback in really the biggest game of his career on this stage, Sunday Night Football, facing the Bills, a 5-time reigning AFC East champs. I mean, this now, we look at New England differently. We do. I mean, you look at 2-2, and the 2 losses even, they kind of beat themselves, especially the Pittsburgh one. There's an easy argument they could be 4-1 or even possibly 5-0 because it's not like they've gotten blown out in any of these games. Turnovers have really hurt them, but you saw in this game, if they don't turn the football over, this is what they're fully capable of a healthy Christian Gonzalez in the secondary, with the interior pass rush working, the offensive line's getting better and better every week. And the Bills, look, they did not make it easy. They never do, especially in Buffalo, but New England now has the confidence to say, especially with their quarterback playing the way he's been playing this entire season, we can beat anybody. We are capable of beating anybody across from us, no matter who it is, because there's not very many teams that walk into Buffalo and win. Lately, the Chiefs have been the only one that have been able to do it. So you look at the progress now and the confidence. This turns the Patriots from nice story, bad team getting better, to oh, this is a playoff contender now. This is the type of win you look at and you go, they are capable on any day of beating anyone, especially with this quarterback throwing the ball the way he's throwing it.
By the way, Max Chadwick in the chat saying, I'm always watching in all caps. He said, ye of little faith. We appreciate you, Max. I still meant what I said. You do type very loud. Again, as do I. So we
can hear it from here.
It's right upstairs. We can hear it from here. No, it was so great to see. Honestly, it was so great to see Drake May get a win while putting everything together, right? He was the most impressive for me. 22 for 30, 273 passing yards in this game, 88.1 passing grade specifically, 4 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Drake May has had these moments before, but they haven't necessarily amounted to wins. He even had some good games last year where he played well, just the team wasn't really where it needed to be in order for them to get a win. This was great for May because this is the type of win where your quarterback plays very well. It's against a good opponent. It's sort of an emotional, meaningful win, and they did just that. They won this game. There have been times before in this season where they have been the better team, and they have not come away with the win. And, of course, we're here on the show every single week sort of telling you guys that, right? Saying, like, hey, I know the Patriots or whoever it is may have lost this game, but this is going well. This is going well. They played well here. It was just, turnovers, penalties, whatever it is. Who did they just play? Where like the running backs fumbled it like 3 or 4 times. Who was that?
Pittsburgh.
It was that. I mean,
Pittsburgh they should have won that game. They had 5 turnovers.
And we said on this show, that's a good team that should have won that game that just did not do that. They were able to have one of those games in Buffalo against the Bills, which I think is a huge statement win. Now, the over/under win total before this week for the Patriots was still at 8.5. That's still a pretty strong score, especially for all of the changes that they had made this offseason. I know there's a lot of faith in Mike Vrabel and who he is as a head coach, but Drake May, hadn't had that big I have arrived game yet, so you were just kind of thinking that it was coming. But, man, that number seems really solid now, looking at what the Patriots have been capable of over the last couple of weeks. I think the Bills, on the other side of things, one, I'm looking at social media last night and this morning, and there's a lot of Bills fans out there who, you'd have thought this team was 1-4, not 4-1, with how I felt like a lot of the. Now, I can understand when you are a team that's been in a Super Bowl window for the last 3 or 4 years, and you have not been able to get over the hump. These games can be compounding and frustrating because it's not just an individual game. I think a lot of people would look at that game if they weren't a Buffalo Bills fan and say to themselves, whoa, hold on. You lost to a good quarterback, you lost to a good team, and you barely lost the game. Like, what's the big deal? And I think Bills fans are they wanted these kinds of games out of their system. But if I could speak to Buffalo Bills fans here, no team is immune of games like this, even the best in the NFL. I think that Patrick Mahomes and what he's been able to do over the last 2 to 3 years specifically has made us think that should be possible. And genuinely, especially if you look at what the Chiefs did last year, they had so many of these games where they were the stinkers, but they won. And what they did in the clip that they won those games last year, it's just not possible to think that that's going to continue to happen. So the Bills fans out there, it wasn't pretty. Things need to get changed. There's no doubt about it. And I'll get to my stats, told the story in a second. But no great team doesn't have games like that. Or at least I should say it's so rare that you don't have 1 or 2 games like this that are on your schedule. And I think especially losing to a good team makes it a little bit easier, should make it a little bit easier to stomach. Now, with that being said, the lack of run game from Buffalo in this game in particular was something that has to be better moving forward. The floor of how the Bills run the football has to be better. We're coming off multiple games of James Cook getting in the end zone and him being a 100-yard rusher. And after this game, you kind of look back at their schedule and you go, they haven't really played really good teams for those stats to be able to show up. In this game specifically, James Cook, 9 carries and 32 yards in the first half. Okay, tough first half. That's all right. He'll bounce back. Well, 6 carries, 17 yards in the second half. They just could not get the run game going at all whatsoever. And the thing that I really, amongst the penalties, because the Bills' penalties, the fumbles that they had, like the mental mistakes were things to note in this game. But this contest specifically was the most I had seen this season, Dalton, where they kind of just went, Josh, save us, a lot in this game. Now, obviously, not being able to run the football as well as they would have liked to is a big reason why you go into that. But as this game went on, the problem wasn't necessarily that they weren't running the football. A lot of teams will have weeks where they can't run the football. But for Buffalo, they couldn't run the football. And then, like I said, it was, Josh, please, Josh, do the MVP thing. Just take over. How many plays did we see last night where Josh Allen's got the football and he's scrambling for like 6 seconds just trying to find anybody down the field? That means that the concept didn't work. That means that the progressions didn't work. And that means that the fire drill is sometimes not working for this team. And so you're just, so much was on Josh Allen's shoulders last night. And for as talented as he is, you don't want to be playing too many games where that's the case, Dalton.
No, I mean, this is the idea, is they try to get through some of those other weeks without Josh Allen having to carry them. And then these are the weeks that, well, yes, he carries them through it. But I think something to note here is New England loaded the box a lot. They ran the 3rd most man coverage of any team this week. I think what you're getting is that Mike Vrabel made a choice. Do we want to get beat by this team running the football with Allen and the tight ends and James Cook and Ray Davis and everything they have? Or do we take our chances and say, this is why we signed Carlton Davis, this is why we drafted Christian Gonzalez, and go, we can cover these guys man-to-man on the outside? And really the ones that were hurting them, the guys that were hurting them the most were the tight ends, especially Dalton Kincaid. But the receivers for the Bills, they still don't have a number 1 receiver. Let's be real. Keon Coleman has his moments. Josh Palmer has his moments. Khalil Shakir is a good underneath guy who can win after the catch. But there's nobody that scares you like a Justin Jefferson or somebody like that. So I think that's a choice that defensive coaches get to make in these games as well. Yeah, well, I guess we'll make Josh Allen beat us with his arm, and if he does it, he does it. I mean, there's not much you can do, but he doesn't have that number 1 threat outside. We're not afraid to play man-to-man coverage. The other thing, too, I want to say on the New England side, and I think it's a good point of, Mike Vrabel, an experienced coach coming in, and B, a lot of their other highest-graded players on this team, and this is a very young team New England has, aside from Drake May, in those highest graded, of course, is you look at several of their other highest graded players in this game. Robert Spillane, veteran, they just brought in, right? You talk about Michael Wen, who's been there forever. You talk about Morgan Moses, the right tackle. He's been around forever. Stephon Diggs, obviously, in the revenge game. Just some of the contributions I think they got from some of the veteran guys on this team. That's what gets you through a big road win like this. And obviously, your quarterback playing well, that helps a lot. That's the biggest part of it. But I think it's games like this why Mike Vrabel and this front office felt the need to go, hey, we need a handful of veteran guys, not just to increase the talent floor on this team, because that's obvious, especially on the offensive line. That part's obvious. But to go, okay, these guys know how to win in these types of environments. They've played on winning teams before. They've been around a long time. I think now all of a sudden you look at this game and go, they have the right mixture of young guys and veteran guys who can get through and just punch through a game like this that they know is going to be an all-out war. It's never easy beating the Bills, and they found a way to do it. I mean, New England deserves so much credit here, and the Bills, the one last thing I'll say on them is and actually I'll go into my most disappointing with this, their defense is still just not prime time. If we're being honest, this year, they have the 9th lowest graded defense and the 8th worst coverage grade. I look at their cornerbacks in this game. Christian Benford, who's the one constant back there, 39.5 coverage grade. Tre'Davious White, in the year 2025, is still starting at corner for them because Maxwell Hairston has yet to play a snap in a Bills uniform. He had a 49 coverage grade. Those two combined to allow over 100 yards in coverage. It's the same problem to me. is when they play good teams. We saw them, like the Ravens, say what you want about them now. Week 1, that was the Ravens, right? And that was the Ravens offense that dropped 40 points on them. And Henry went crazy and Lamar looked good and all that. It was one turnover and a freak comeback that decided that game, right? But when this team plays good offenses in the AFC, when they get to the playoffs and they play, if it's the Ravens, it will certainly be Kansas City at some point. New England, if they have to play them a third time, certainly they have to go to New England now and find a way to win, or you lose that tiebreaker. This Bills defense, no matter, honestly, for me, the judgment of them, even through the 4-0 start, didn't change. It was, okay, they're 4-0. Is their defense going to show up in big moments? Also didn't quite do that in this game.
So I just want to address something that somebody in the chat is saying. So, because Drake May's grade was, I think it was what did we say? It was like a 79.7. So somebody in the chat, and it's understandable why people would think this, YK, so I understand it. So he said, so Drake May was just above average according to PFF. No, the PFF scale, average, or whatever, like the replaceable line, whatever you want to call it, is a 60. It's not a 75. You can't think of PFF numerical 1 out of 100 grades as if they are like school grades, because like a school grade would be, okay, a C, that's an average, that's a 75. That's not how the scale works at PFF. A 60 would be, okay, you were fine, you did your job, you were baseline, you didn't make a heavy impact, but you didn't screw anything up. Like a 60 is that middle line right there for the average. So Drake May, he had an 80.2 passing grade in this one, mainly because the first half started slow for him. The second half, he had an elite passing grade, and he was unbelievable in that second half. So you see that passing number well above average into the low 80s. But then he had a 57.2, I believe, rushing grade, just because, okay, there were a couple of scrambles, and then there was one where he wasn't able to avoid a tackle in the backfield. He ended up taking a sack. So that brings it down very slightly, because there's not a lot of weight that was in that, down to that 79 mark. So that is how we get to that mark there. So I think the big takeaway is sort of what Drake May was able to do. When you look at the PFF grade specifically, I think the big takeaway is the second half passing grade, which was, I believe I still have it up here, 94.2 was his second half passing grade. So that's what you want to see. Also, I misspoke earlier. I said he had 4 big-time throws. He only had 2 big-time throws in this game. I must have been looking at that game plus another one when I saw the big-time throws on there. So you just wanted to clarify myself there. But yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic game to watch between two quarterbacks who can play this game at a very, very high level. And I want you to touch on Stefon Diggs, because I know he's your most impressive, because I also have some Stefon Diggs thoughts, but it was an amazing game from him last night.
And for one more angle on that 79.7 grade, let's take the 26 quarterbacks who have played so far this week, or at least the 26 starting quarterbacks who have played so far this week. That's the 7th best grade among those 26. So that's what you're talking about. It really was an excellent game from Drake May. There's no questioning that at all. No, I mean, Stefon Diggs, look, we've questioned, probably maybe even more so than the offensive line at this point, if the Patriots have a number 1 receiver. If Stefon Diggs keeps playing the way that he's played the last 2 weeks, 2 straight 100-yard games. Don't forget last week too. This is now a whole different offense, and you saw that in this game. The reason New England could get so explosive was because Stefon Diggs looked like vintage Stefon Diggs. 10 catches, 146 yards. How about after the catch? 4 missed tackles forced, right, on those 10 catches, 8 of those going for first downs. I mean, and you just see, even especially when he's getting outside the pocket, this is what Josh Allen used to do with Diggs, right, that's the guy he's looking for. That's the guy he's going to look for in those scramble situations, those second reaction situations. So I think Diggs having those vintage performances. He looks healthy now off the torn ACL from last year. He's playing more of an outside or even a mixed role than he did in Houston when he was playing in the slot a lot last year early on. He just looks a little bit more explosive right now. So if he can carry that through the whole season, maybe Diggs has something left in the tank. New England's got a number 1 receiver. They keep building behind it. The tight ends have been really good this year too. They're working on running the ball in any given week when they have a good matchup. But May and Diggs, all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks have shown they're a threat.
I loved watching Stefon Diggs in this game because it's talent that can get you to the NFL, right? You get to the NFL because you can get to the NFL, because you have the talent level to be able to do it. But to have a long career, you have to want that. And when you look at Stefon Diggs, he's 31 right now. He's going to be 32 in November. Wide receiver specifically is a position where you can see a big-time drop-off. We see that all the time. Some of the best wide receivers in the league in their early 20s, mid-20s, and sometimes late 20s as well. Like, the second they hit 30 and get into their 30s, they really take a fall off. But it's the guys who want to extend their career that often do. And it's because as your athleticism goes, just naturally from playing a violent physical game for so long, and especially for a guy like Stefon Diggs who is coming off of major knee surgery into his 30s, you have to find different, wiser ways to win, I should say. We've seen this with Keenan Allen. We've seen it with Adam Thielen, right? We see it with guys like that who, the older they get, they have to win a different way. When Stefon Diggs was with the Vikings, and even when he was with the Buffalo Bills, he was able to win off of athleticism because he's just very talented of a player. Stefon Diggs was one of the best route runners in the NFL. He was one of the best separators in the NFL. You watched that game against Buffalo last night, and his biggest catches, his most impactful plays, they weren't really him putting his foot in the ground, having a one cut where he just creates this giant lane of separation. What it was is he got open. Just from savviness, really more than anything else. It was just, okay, Drake may scramble into the left here. I need to kind of come underneath this zone, and I need to make for a shorter pass here. Or the touchdown pass where it was like, okay, I just ran my route. Now I see sort of what he's doing. I know I have space over top. Let me spin and let me get behind this defender. He is winning with that high football IQ right now. And it's great to see for a player like Stefon Diggs because there are just too many examples of wide receivers who, when they hit that age where their athleticism really starts to go compared to how they came into the league and made a difference in the league, Diggs is showing right now that he is willing to, and he talked about this before the game and after the game when Melissa and just the crew at Sunday Night Football was interviewing him. He talked about the maturity and going through that injury and going through the different stops, whether it was Minnesota to Buffalo, Buffalo to Houston, and certainly just where he is now with the New England Patriots. And each stop along the way, he's had to mature a little bit. And I think his game has as well. And that's the thing that I really just wanted to say about Stefon Diggs is it's really cool that he is becoming another story of you get to the NFL because you have the ability to, but you stay in the NFL and you have a long career because you want to. And Stefon Diggs is now in that category. We saw that last night.
And despite what we know of him now, he was a fifth-round pick back in the day, too. It's not like he was ever just favored to have this great career. Right. And you could argue, and it was one day me, I think actually all three of us, you, me, and Max, we went back to that 2015 draft class, and we said, I think Stefon Diggs is the best player looking back on it in this draft class, which is crazy. It wasn't the thickest class by any means, but unbelievable stuff. And everything you just mentioned about just the veteran savvy of a receiver, I don't think anybody embodied that more than Larry Fitzgerald, right? Late in the last 5-6 years of his career. And it makes you think of that. If Diggs can continue to do this, again, a veteran player with such a young group that's trying to take a step, possibly now towards the postseason, that's big to have that type of veteran leadership on your team.
Yeah, Reggie Wayne, obviously Jerry Rice, one of the longest careers in NFL history for the receiver position. So it's just, not that we're saying necessarily Stefon is those guys, but he is along the same line of extending his career because he wants to. Rhodes in the chat saying, maybe Trevor will give the Colts credit. Dude really thought the Raiders were going to put 28 on us, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if they beat us. Oh, we will get to the Colts, and I will talk about the Colts game. And
the perfect season's back on, Trevor.
I don't know if it's the perfect season, but we've got another perfect thing for the Colts that we do get to talk about. But we have to talk about the Sunday morning game, the international game, before we get to that one. Vikings and the Browns. The Vikings win this game 21-17. Comeback fashion here. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Minnesota Vikings. Defensive tackle Javon Hargrave at the top of the list with an 87.6. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson an 82.9. Edge rusher Jonathan Grenard a 75.8. Offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw doing a little bit of load management this week. Was the snap count still getting back to form, coming off of that knee injury, a 74.5. Safety Josh Metellus with a 74.3. Quarterback Carson Wentz in this one with a 67.1. On Cleveland's side of things, edge rusher Alex Wright with a 91.1. Edge rusher Isaiah McGuire an 83.4. Offensive guard Joel Bitonio 79.9. Running back Quinshon Judkins a 77.3. Tight end David Njoku, a 76.9. And then Dylan Gabriel in this one, in his first start, 63.0. What do we think, Dalton? Stats told the story.
I just think the Browns gave the Vikings too many swings at the plate to come back and win this game. And the Browns had 4 offensive drives up 17-14 with a chance to kill this game. So, I mean, look, they had a lead, and they have maybe the best defense in football, and, they want their defense to make as many stops as possible. But to me, it's about Brian Flores and this Vikings defense keeping them in the game despite a lot of errors. There was a Xavier Scott fumble. There was a missed field goal that would have tied the game. The Vikings were battling offensively, as you are going to against this Cleveland Browns team, but defense kept them in it. The Browns in the fourth quarter, before the final drive that ended the game, 4 punts, 74 net yards in the fourth quarter, 44 of them on that last drive. So those 4 drives I'm talking about, only 30 yards total. Punted on each of them, 51.7 offensive grade. I think a similar vibe, kind of the opposite, I should say, to what I was just saying about New England and having those veterans that can finish a game off. The Browns are really young, right? They've had the most snaps in the NFL played by rookies this season, and they just couldn't find a way to finish this game, whether it was a one last stop that they needed or, to me, offensively. And obviously, I think Dylan Gabriel played relatively well in his first start, right? He was efficient. A 63 passing grade isn't spectacular, but you know what? It's roughly the same as Joe Flacco would have given you. And honestly, you might as well play the younger guy at that point if it's even. Quinshon Judkins looks really good. All of the Browns rookies look really good. They really do. They just have to find a way now to learn how to win football games and close ones like this, because they had multiple opportunities. People will point to the last drive from Carson Wentz, and he was really good when it came down to crunch time. But to me, when you have a game where you have 4 opportunities to go and score points to extend a 3-point lead, and you don't do it, there is an element where the Vikings defense and Brian Flores kept them in the game, and the Browns just couldn't finish them off.
Yeah, and I think that Dylan Gabriel's performance in this game goes into that. Now, I don't want to be too harsh to Dylan Gabriel because, again, we talked about this last week. I figured that a change was coming at the quarterback position. I didn't think there was any way that they were going to do it for an international game, and they do. So the conditions for Gabriel to start in this one weren't great. He goes 19 for 33, 190 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns in this one. What I did like about him was when he was operating the offense, sort of in a way where he wasn't pushed too much. He had a 22.2 plus accuracy percentage, which is a well-placed ball that is also away from where the defenders are. So that's truly it's an accurate throw, but it's also like a plus accurate throw because you're basically doing everything that you can to give your receiver the opportunity to get some yards after catch. So that was the 5th best this week, that percentage that he had there. So I like all that. But on the other side of things, sort of what you were just talking about there, 6.5 average depth of target. He only had 6 passes in the entire game beyond 15 yards. 2 of them came on that last drive where Minnesota had taken the lead, so they had no choice. So in all reality, he basically only had 4 passes the entire game when it was sort of an even playing field that went more than 15 yards. He just didn't throw the ball the way you needed to win in this league. And I think that that's sort of totally fine. I think that I don't want to say that they set him up for failure because they didn't. They were close in this game. They almost won this game. You mentioned they just kind of let the Vikings hang around a little bit too much. But to be honest, how many more points would we have expected the Browns to score with Dylan Gabriel making his first start? I think that this was probably best case scenario almost. But just the context of it is Gabriel didn't throw the way he needed to win the game. And I'm not saying he should have. All of the context around this one tells you that this basically played out exactly how it was supposed to. But they scored 17 points. Minnesota scored 21. So that, to me, was the Browns, I think, are in a really healthy place with how they're ushering in their rookies into their offensive and defensive identities. And they kind of just are what they are right now. Unless they're holding teams to less than 17 points, it's kind of hard to see the Browns winning any games. So the fact that they did score 17, I feel like you feel pretty good about where the Browns are at.
It's the NFL version of Iowa, right? And that's exactly what we're looking at. I mean, but I think, again, in the context of Gabriel, where it was hard for Flacco to push the ball downfield. Why? They're a bottom 3 pass blocking team, and
it's true.
Their only player who went over 30 receiving yards in this game was David Njoku, who probably is
tight end offense, baby.
Either him or Jerry Jeudy, or those are their 2 best receivers, and Judy's been really quiet this year, a lot quieter than last year. So, no, I think you're right, and I think, for my most impressive, I look at Carson Wentz and having to deal with this defense and just what it takes to beat this team and even score 21 points on this team, and the fact that he had to lead that late drive down the field. Carson Wentz, is it super flashy? Not really. 70.7 passing grade is solid, 236, 1 touchdown, 2 big-time throws, but a couple of things things stand out to me here. One, I thought Kevin O'Connell's play calling was outstanding in this game. He knew, especially with multiple starters down on his offensive, I think 3 starters down on his offensive line against this team. So what do you have to do? Carson, get rid of the ball. 2.5 seconds flat on average. Carson Wentz was getting rid of the football. I thought the bootleg game was good to mix in. I thought there were several screens that were solid play calls just to get the defense and get that pressure off you, even if they didn't go for explosive plays. And here's a fun one too. Minnesota, when they had extra pass protection in there, right? More than 5 pass blockers. 8.1 yards per play. When they went with a standard protection, a scat protection, 5.6. So O'Connell knew, look, I got to max protect. I got to get some screens, some boots. I got to move the pocket sometimes. And if we're going to win this game, Carson Wentz has to make 4 or 5 throws that I really need him to make. He was able to do it. So I think we have to give Wentz a whole lot of credit now. 2-0 in his 2 starts, getting the Vikings back on track after a little bit of struggles, especially offensively. There's going to be a quarterback debate eventually. Probably, but for now, I wouldn't even worry about that until McCarthy's healthy. We can have that argument later. I just think O'Connell and Wentz did a great job of just kind of guiding this team through against, again, arguably the best defense in football, despite the Browns being 1-4 now. Just a really good game, and I think a really gritty game for the Vikings to just get through and get a win and take a breath and come back home.
Blending a little bit of my stat that told the story into my most disappointing and sort of just like what to think of Cleveland and their offense moving forward. First and foremost, the Browns' run game. Judkins. 75.1 rushing grade in this one, 23 attempts, 110 rushing yards, 65.3 run blocking grade as a team, which has been better than they have shown in the last couple of weeks. So it was good to see them blocking well as an offensive line as a whole, I should say. Not necessarily everybody, but just as a whole, it was better this week. And then Judkins being able to take advantage of it was huge. The tight end passing game, I think, is something that will be a baseline for this team moving forward. Whether it's Dylan Gabriel, who's the long-term starting quarterback, whether they get Shadur Sanders in there at some point, the tight end passing game is basically what they need to build their offense through. They need to. The Browns are just going to be a heavy personnel team, in my opinion. They're going to have David Njoku and Harold Fannin Jr. on the field as much as they possibly can, because not only is that extra blockers in the blocking game for leaning on Quinshon Judkins, but the Browns tight end passing game in this one, 82.9 receiving grade combined between Njoku and Harold Fannin Jr., 10 catches, 80 receiving yards. So half of, well, not quite half, but almost half of Dylan Gabriel's passing yards were to these 2 tight ends. They also had the only 2 touchdowns that he threw on the day. So very comfortable throwing to those guys. And then to sort of mix in my last point here, I would love to see Dylan Sampson getting more involved in this. I think he had 1 carry in this game is where they were. Jerome Ford had, let me see.
Only a couple.
Jerome Ford had 5 carries for 18 yards in this game. Dylan Sampson, 1 carry, -4 yards. And then Dylan Sampson, even in the receiving game a little bit, just 2 targets, 1 catch for 6 yards. I know that pass protection is an issue right now for Dylan Sampson, so they don't want him out there a ton on situations where, if you're going to be a receiving back, you probably also have to be a pretty good pass protecting back, right? That's the combination of third down duties. But however they are getting him involved, to me, this team needs to be a heavy 2 tight end, 2 running back team moving forward. They need to lean on the 2 tight end sets as a heavy part of the formation that they're going with, a good, healthy number of just offensive snaps out of a 2 tight end set, because they also need to then just lean on the diversity of what they could have in the run game. And I don't feel like they have that run game diversity quite yet, but to me, that's going to be the best version, the most efficient version of the Browns offense throughout the rest of the season as they're getting one of these quarterbacks, obviously Dylan Gabriel in there now, acclimated to being the starter for them for the long term. So that was just my thoughts overall on how I think that team could grow.
No, I agree. I mean, they're the lowest scoring team in football for a reason, right? Or tied with Tennessee because, well, they have personnel issues on offense, right? They're in the offseason, they're going to need help at offensive line and receiver, and we'll see about quarterback as the year goes on, obviously. But, yeah, I think that's just fundamentally how they're going to have to play it, right? They got to slow games down and play defense, and at this point, hope they win 17-14. They couldn't do it in this game. They're going to get more cracks at it. Obviously, and that defense keeps them in just about every game they're going to play.
All right, Rhodes, here we go. Raiders at the Colts, Indianapolis. They don't almost lose this game. The Raiders, in fact, do not score 28 points like I thought could be the case in a little bit of a shootout here. 40-6. Colts absolutely dominated this game. Their top 5 graded players that we had in this game, edge rusher Samson Ebukam with an 86.8, wide receiver Josh Downs an 85.0, Offensive guard Quentin Nelson with an 84.9, cornerback Charvarius Ward an 83.1, safety Nick Cross with a 78.7, and then Daniel Jones with a 73.7. On Vegas' side of things, their offensive guard Dylan Parham with a 91.7, offensive guard Jackson Powers Johnson an 82.4, tight end Ian Thomas with a 74.6, wide receiver Jack Besh finally getting into the mix here with a 74.0, and then tight end Albert Okwuegbunam 72.2. Called off the practice squad this week.
Him and Ian Thomas. I mean, you talk about having you don't have Brock Bowers. These are the guys
they didn't
that
have Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
Both of their starting tight ends went down, and Chip Kelly went, nope. The game plan is the game plan. We're sticking to it. Geno Smith in this one, a 56.0. I think his passing grade was a lot worse than that even. So your stats told the story here, Dalton.
I think just in general, watching this Colts offense and watching the way they've operated now through 5 games, they put a pressure on you as a team, as an opponent, that's normally reserved right now for, when you're playing the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes or the Bills and Josh Allen, where you can't make a whole lot of mistakes because they're not going to give you anything at all. You look at just the clean style of football that they play, and this is the idea that Shane Steichen wants in his offense. It's just, I just want to play a clean football game. I want mistake-free football. We're not going to do anything crazy. Honestly, this might be the least flashy 40 points I've ever seen scored.
Truly.
It was almost the most boring 40 points I've ever seen, and yet you look at the results for this Colts team, right? Only 2 plays that lost yardage the entire day. No sacks, no turnovers, only 2 accepted offensive penalties, and one of them was on a 2-point conversion because Spencer Schrader, the kicker, got hurt, so they had to go for 2, like 2/3 of this game,
right.
And 6 for 6 in the red zone. I mean, offensively especially, they just play such a clean brand of football. And if either your offense isn't up to the challenge or you're not forcing them into mistakes or turnovers on basically the 2 things the Rams did to still only beat them by 7, you're going to have a long day because this team they just choke you out through the course of a game, and they don't. You watch this offense right now, and if it continues like this, they're going to go to the playoffs. They just don't screw anything up. And I watched their offense in this game, and I watched it the whole way through. And I know that, look, the Raiders have a talent deficiency on defense. We know this. But you can't have that against this Colts team because, again, that's the best way I can put it. They just don't screw anything up.
Nope.
And even if it's not the most exciting football you've ever watched, again, 2 negative plays the entire game. Mm-hmm. And they scored 40 points. Yeah. They almost put me to sleep scoring 40 points. Really, I mean, it's the craziest part. It's the exact Daniel Jones brand of football I was asking for this offense.
Yeah,
because that's what it could turn into.
This is the perfect version of whatever the Indianapolis Colts were going to be this year. Like, it is all worked out for them. And to your point, this is a team that just what's almost even more impressive than them not beating themselves is the fact that they're doing that with such a diversity of offensive weapons. They had 3 players in this game average more than 3 yards per carry. They had 5 different players in this game with more than 20 yards receiving. Like, it's one thing to say, like, oh, okay, like, we're efficient when we go to our stars. The Colts are efficient when they go to everybody, which is certainly a Daniel Jones thing. It's definitely a Shane Steichen thing, but it's just, we talked about this on last week's show. They are saying to Daniel Jones, hey, put the ball right here at this time. And he goes, okay, and he does it. And it's just, he doesn't have I think there are a lot of quarterbacks that might be able to do that, but then they're physically limited, right? We go like, oh, okay, like this quarterback is an assassin from 25 yards in. But anything past 25 yards, like, it's not great. Daniel Jones, or like for running, for example, it's like okay, like this guy knows how to, escape pressure, but then he doesn't have the talent to like pick up the yards afterwards. Daniel Jones has the talent to do all of these things. He's now just uber efficient with it, and he's efficient with it no matter who he's going to. So I think a lot of people in the chat are like, hey, are the Colts actually like legit here? Until further notice, they're absolutely legit because nobody can really slow them down, including themselves. How many of these teams, Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore Ravens, good teams, shooting themselves in the foot consistently throughout this season? Well, I don't want to say consistently because that doesn't always been the case, but we've got a handful of games now where like those teams shooting themselves in the foot. They're getting in their own way. The Colts, we're 5 weeks into the season. Not only are they playing well, not only can nobody stop them, they can't even stop themselves. And it's often, that's the first, opponent, to quote Rocky there. Whoever you're looking at in the mirror, it's the toughest opponent that you're going to face. Sometimes that's the toughest opponent that you're going to face. And the Colts are up to that challenge every single time. So it's very, very impressive there. Geno Smith was not good in this game. His passing grade wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's a 53.5, but that's because he had the big-time throw in this one. He had the 2 turnover-worthy plays. The one that was the tipped pass interception doesn't count as a turnover-worthy play just because it's a good defensive play, and you know he obviously he's throwing it, but who knows what happens after he throws that football. It could have been a touchdown, I believe, on that play because that's where they were next to the goal line. So we don't count that as a turnover-worthy play. It's just a really good play by the defensive player to get their hand up there and bat the ball, and it obviously goes for an interception on that one. But Geno wasn't good in this game. And you know what I think the biggest problem was for the Raiders in this game? It felt like Geno told himself he had to do it all himself. That's what I think the biggest problem was in this game. Because for the last couple of weeks, we have focused on how they haven't really been able to get the run game going. They haven't been able to get Action Gentry going. They haven't had that explosiveness or even just straight up consistency with the ground game. And I think that it finally got to Geno Smith this week where he said, okay, I'm going to do it myself then. Like I'm gonna create the big time throws, independent of whatever happens with the run game. And the crappy part about it is, the run game was better this week.
No, Ginty, I mean, it was great. He was great. He was best player on the field against the Bears. No, they've gotten that part going. To me, more so than even carrying this team through the opponents, it's his own defense. Because now you look at this team their last 3 weeks, and look, we knew coming into the year
surely.
they didn't have much on defense.
Surely.
But they've given up now 106 points in their last 3 games.
That's fair too. But to me, totally goes into what I felt like I was watching, where Geno was just like, I've got to do it all myself. So I thought it was more of the running game part of it, and I do think that probably was still a factor. But you are totally right to bring up the defense, where he might believe, like it's the Caleb Williams USC factor, right? Caleb Williams at USC, he had a handful of turnover-worthy plays like throughout his last year when he was there, but Caleb Williams was like, I'm the best player in the country, and we're about to go 500 if I don't score 55 every week. And I wonder if Geno Smith now feels that way, because it sure looked like that's how he played yesterday, is if I don't score, Rhodes, 28, we're not going to win.
At least. I mean,
right.
this is the problem with this defense, and this was the problem, that we were worried about preseason with this back seven is it looks maybe marginally slightly better than last year, but not a whole lot. I mean, you look at the secondary with so many young guys and just kind of cast-offs playing there. You look at the linebacker level with Devin White really struggling in this game, and he's green dot in your defense right now. I mean, there's just not many options on this defense. Like we've talked about, I believe their highest graded player still Jamal Adams. I mean, that's where we're at, is that their highest graded.
It's got to be Max Crosby now, right? After the last 2 weeks?
It could be Crosby now. Let me look at it. I know that's probably 1-2 right there.
Jamal Adams is probably close.
It is Max Crosby and then Jamal Adams,
yeah.
And then nobody else is within 7 points. They just don't have enough depth on this defense.
No.
And I mean, and we knew that going into the season. This should not be a shock
Them
at all.
not having Christian Wilkins is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you make that signing to build around him and make the defensive line a lot better.
Right.
And what happened with him and how, him not being on the team anymore is...
There's that. There's the secondary that was already struggling from last year. There's the hodgepodge of veterans at linebacker that have been, apparently Jamal Adams is the best one. There's, Malcolm Kuntz has had one good game out of 5. I mean, it's just they just don't have a ton. Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham, they don't have a ton to work with. And then when was the moment when this game really started to turn? It was okay for a quarter plus for the Raiders once they got the punt blocked. And then the Colts got an easy.
Yeah, you can't have that.
Then the Colts got an easy touchdown, and then the Raiders were driving back in the tip ball and the interception, and then the Colts get another touchdown because the Raiders can't get a stop no matter where you are on the field. This is how the pressure mounts on an offense to have to. I think the Caleb Williams example at USC is perfect. That team went 7-5 that year,
right.
And there were games they were losing 49-42 or whatever it was,
yeah.
And you just, as a quarterback, you tell yourself all the time you're not gonna press. But there's certain times you're pressing because you want to win ball games, and this was one for Geno. And again, I just think the Raiders fundamentally, as defensively more so to me than offensively, and they haven't been great offensively, but just a fundamentally flawed team. They don't have enough talent on defense.
Yeah, I would agree. My most impressive in this game, I'm going to shout out Ashton Doolin. 5 targets, 2 catches, 55 receiving yards. But he also had 2 kick returns in this game, 43 total receiving yards, a 99-yard touchdown that got called back due to a hold, and then he had a tackle on special teams as well. Ashton Dulin was all over the place, and there's a handful of players that I think that we could have gone with on Indianapolis' side of things. But how often do I get to shout out Ashton Dulin in a game that he certainly deserved to get a shout out? I wanted to make sure he got the nod for most impressive because his day was fantastic. And he's part of that diversity of just what this team has. And how everybody that goes out there and plays just feels really confident in what their role is, the game plan, and how to execute it.
And the one thing, if you're going to run an offense like this, you need 2 things. I'll go with yours first because Daniel Jones, the one thing he doesn't quite have in him is the super rocket arm that Josh Allen has to throw the deep ball all over the place. If you're going to play within that 20 to 25-yard box, it's got to be a meritocracy. And Dulin is probably the 6th or 7th guy you think of on this offense, and yet he can step in. He's been in this system a while, and he can come in and play. The other thing you have is an elite offensive line that played just outstanding football. Again, these are every time we talk about Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor, we need to not forget about these front 5 either. The starting offensive line for the Colts in this game, a 79.5 grade as a unit, only allowed 4 pressures all day. Great in the run and pass game. Quentin Nelson and those guys up front are still dominating. It's just an unbelievable unit they have, and really, I think that's the one thing we have to remember too. That's the heart and soul of this team is Quentin Nelson and Bernard Ryman and those guys on that offensive line. They allow everything else to happen here.
It's what this team was built around, and I think through the Colts' ups and downs over the last couple of years, you forget about that a little bit. And the second they have somebody that can really take advantage of how healthy that team has been built through the trenches, I mean, you are seeing the rewards of I think that team building there from Chris Ballard. And I want to say, like, it hasn't always been pretty, but Ballard, it feels like, has always really tried to emphasize the backbone of what makes a really good team. And now that they have a quarterback that can execute what they're asking them to do, we are seeing that. Game Time, folks. It's the best place to score tickets for NFL or college football games. Games Time is hands down the easiest way that we have found to get sports tickets. We have had thrillers. Can you imagine being at Sunday Night Football last night? In fact, did you see the fan? This is actually perfect. Did you see the fan last night who Josh Allen throws the ball away? The fan's in the front row. He catches it. The second he catches it, he's off. He's gone. Goodbye. Best souvenir you're ever going to have. I mean, the Tirico doing the play-by-play for it was unbelievable. I'm not saying that if you get a ticket through Game Time, you're going to get a souvenir game ball. But I am saying that if you don't go to the games, you can't get a game ball.
Yeah, I mean, catching foul balls is always good. You just don't get as many in football. I get it.
You know? So, check out Game Time, though. The fees, they're always included. You know the total up front. No surprises at checkout. You can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. You can get a panoramic view of the seats in the app before you buy it. Got last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Legit tickets delivered on time. Your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Download the Game Time app. Use the promo code PFF20 for $20 off of your first purchase. That's Game Time. Amazing deals, no hassle. I didn't even notice, when the guy got the ball in that game, you tuck it under the jersey? Because that's what I do, right? I mean, like, they got him on TV now, so it's.
Yeah,
but the only thing that matters is him getting out of that stadium. You know what I'm saying?
Well, true, yeah, but man, he left a pretty good football game.
Can you get arrested for that? For
stealing a football?
No, I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't think
they'd be a little irritated, but I mean, NFL teams can afford football. So if it was a college team, they'd be annoyed. Remember Louisville? Did you see the Louisville Pitt thing last week?
I didn't. What happened?
So I think it was Pittsburgh got an interception, all right, off of Miller Moss, and they were doing a big celebration with the football. And the Louisville ball boy, was a linebacker for Pitt that intercepted it, I believe. The Louisville ball boy comes up and starts trying to, like, rip it out of his arms. And, like, they started fighting over this thing because college, and they have their own logos on the footballs and everything. But it was like a legit, like, almost fight broke out between a Louisville ball boy and a Pitt linebacker, like, in the end zone.
Yes, I do remember that clip now that you're talking about
college and high school coaches, they hate losing footballs. Those things aren't cheap either.
I also think it's funny because some of the colleges don't have the nets behind the field goal posts
Yeah, and they just have like 3 guys behind the end zone that are like, hey, need it back.
Throw it back. No. Just leave.
Yeah.
What are they going to jump into the stands and run after you? Maybe they are.
Oh, our head coach at St. Pete, even if the ball just hit the pavement, like off to the side of a practice field, he hated even the balls getting ruined. $100 ball. $100 ball. Come on now. Keep it off the pavement. It would be a whole bit. Those footballs are not cheap, man. You go stealing those things, especially from a college program. They don't want to pay.
I would never.
They don't want to pay. Especially they're paying the players all that money now.
You got to respect the game.
They can't afford footballs.
You got to respect the game.
Anyway, we're way off track.
We are.
Yeah.
Giants Saints. Speaking of off track, I don't know if this is off track or not. Saints winning the game though. First dub for the New Orleans Saints.
No longer defeated.
No longer defeated. Did you take the Saints in this one? I took the Saints in this one.
I did not. I don't think I did. I need to go back and look.
I feel like you did.
I'm 99% sure.
I felt like we did.
I think I took the Giants. I got to go back and look.
Damn. You're a coward.
I am.
You didn't believe. You didn't believe that the Rat Pack was back.
Was it ever here?
But he's back, Jack.
Oh, okay.
Noel wins this game, 26-14. Top 5 graded players that we had for the New Orleans Saints in this one. Defensive tackle Brian Brzee. Look at him. Look at that elite score, folks. So the first-round pick looks like 90.8. Cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry an 82.1. Cornerback Alante Taylor an 81.9. Wide receiver Rashid Shaheed with an 80.4. Running back Kendre Miller 71.4. And then Spencer Rattler 72.6. On the Giants side of things, offensive tackle Andrew Thomas had a hell of a game. 89.9 overall grade. Linebacker Darius Musow with a 89.0. Safety Javon Holland with a 79.8. Defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris 79.1. Center John Michael Schmitz Jr. 78.2. Jackson Dart in this one a 60.5. Seth told the story, Dalton.
Very, very simple. Trevor, even without watching the game, if I just told you 2 football teams played and one of them won the turnover battle 5-0, you would be 99.9% sure of who won that football game. And that's what the Saints did here, especially when you talk about a Giants team that turned the football over 5 straight times in the middle of this game. It was 14-13. We had a good competitive game going, and honestly, credit Brandon Staley's defense, because outside of the Seattle game, they really haven't been playing that bad of football. They've been okay this year. They just haven't been able to finish games on either side of the ball. But 5 straight turnovers. Game was 14-13 just before the half. Darius Slayton catches a slant, fumbles. That leads to a Saints field goal. Jackson Dart scrambling to his left, just drops the football, and Cam Jordan recovers it. That leads to another Saints field goal. And then the play that really broke the Giants back. It was 19-14. They were driving in to take a lead inside roughly the 10-yard line. Brian Brzee punches the ball away from Cam Scatterbo. Jordan Howden picks it up and brings it back for a touchdown. And then you had an interception from Jackson Dart on each of the next 2 drives in a 2-score game trying to force it. That's what it comes down to. Look, Trev, sometimes football is simple. You turn the ball over 5 times, you're going to lose. And before the Giants turned the ball over 5 times, they had the lead in this game. They scored on the first 2 drives. It looked pretty darn good for a quarter and a half, but it just one mistake cascaded into 4 and 5 and even, it just did not. It never got back on track.
Yeah.
And this Saints defense, again, are they the best defense in football? No. But they've been playing at least decent football, keeping them in games, right? The Cardinals game, I think about week 1, they had a chance to win that game. The Bills game in Buffalo, right? Their defense did not play horribly in that game. It just got away from them at the end, and it's just tough to beat that team in Buffalo. This game, they forced turnovers. They finished them off when they had a chance. Again, Brzee made the biggest play of the game, punching it away from Scatterbo. That's just what it comes down to. One team turned the ball over and the other didn't.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that the Saints got a win here, because I don't know how many wins they're going to get this season. And to be honest with you, the team still needs a lot of talent. So you don't want to win too many games, right? You want to make sure that you have a good draft pick in there. But they have been playing well enough to start the season where it didn't feel right that they were still sitting here without a win. And I'm glad that they were able to get one. Now, that's obviously no shade to Giants fans. Giants fans got a big win last week that they got to celebrate with their new quarterback, Jackson Dart. But it's just, if I'm looking at this, the Saints are a team that they're not going to win many football games this year. At least I don't think that they are. But it was good to see them get at least one, especially at home where, man, playing in New Orleans used to, and still in ways is, that's a tough road game. And so it was good to see them get a win there. The Giants offense without Malik Neighbors now, at wide receiver specifically, I'm worried about it. Now, give credit to the Saints. Their 2 defensive backs, Kool-Aid McKinstry, 90.3 coverage grade. Alante Taylor, 83.3 coverage grade. They were fantastic in this game. But a big reason why they were also fantastic, the other side of that coin, is Giants 54.6 receiving grade as a team just from their wide receivers. When you look at the best production that they had in the passing game, it was Daniel Bellinger, who had 52 receiving yards. It was Cam Scatterbo, who then had 45 receiving yards, on 6 catches. And then Theo Johnson as well, who had the 2 touchdowns. He had 6 catches for 33 yards. But Darius Slayton, 3 receptions, 31 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5 receptions just for 30 yards. Bo Collins, 1 reception for 7 yards. Jalen Hyatt had 3 targets in this one, no catches. So I'm worried about this team at the wide receiver spot without Jackson Dart, or without Malik Neighbors, specifically because Jackson Dart, to me, is, yes, he can hit the seam shots over the middle. Yes, he can go to the tight ends. We've seen that before during his time when he was at Ole Miss. But he loves hitting the big shots with the wide receivers on the outside. You know, he's a sideline, outside the numbers type of explosive passer. And that's a Malik Neighbors stat. Like, that is a Malik Neighbors, not only catches those himself, but it opens things up for those other wide receivers that we have seen before, even with the Giants struggling. So this game, albeit one game, gives me some reservations moving forward, because I figured it would be a tough enough adjustment for Jackson Dart in the passing game. Now, the week before, what we saw from them is how Jackson Dart was able to get involved as a runner, right? As this dual threat guy. Okay, you got to take into account everything that's going on here. The RPO is a legitimate factor. Play action's now a legitimate factor. Him scrambling himself, obviously a factor and a big reason why they were able to win that game last week. But specifically, him not having the ability to take those deep shots, I think is going to make for a longer learning curve type of a year for him without Malik Neighbors. So to me, amongst the, Giants turnovers, Saints get the win, like that's sort of the big takeaways with them losing and the Giants losing, and the Saints winning. The stat that told the story, and what I'm actually going to monitor moving forward, is how the Giants wide receivers are going to be able to move on without Malik Neighbors in the lineup.
And I think that's what you're trying to do in this offense. If you're Brian Daboll and you're Joe Shane, is especially without Neighbors. We know Neighbors is a keeper. At this point, I think we know Cam Scatterbo is a keeper. But especially out there at wide receiver, who are the keepers? Who are your long-term pieces, right? Is Jalen Hyatt going to step up and play well? Is Wan'Dale Robinson going to be more than just a possession guy who catches every ball at 6 yards or less? Is Darius Slayton going to be, somebody that we can rely on? Because in this game, he dropped a deep post that would have been a big play, and he had the fumble. He really had a couple of opportunities there where it could have gone a lot differently. Bo Collins is a guy getting playing time. Is he going to be a guy who's useful for us down the line? I think that's what they have to find. But for right now, and this is kind of what it looked like last week, this is going to look like the 2022 version of this team that made the playoffs, but they did it even that team with no receivers, and they ran it a lot, and they had tight ends on the field constantly.
Yeah.
So it's going to look like that this year.
Good call by you last week.
Are there going to be more keepers? Both of these teams, it's the same story. There's several others in the league. You're trying to find foundational pieces. Mm-hmm. We know Neighbors is one despite the injury. That's not a question. Does it suck to not have him? Absolutely. But you get him back next year. Figure out who or what you can complement him with, whether that's anybody on this team or anybody we got to draft or find in the offseason.
My most impressive in this one was great to see Andrew Thomas back on the elite side of grades. 0 pressures allowed on 46 pass blocking snaps. Great to see that. And Andrew Thomas, known, I feel, for more of what he does as a pass protector, how clean he is in pass protection, 29.2% impact run blocking percentage. This dude was whooping ass this week. It was great to see the best version of Andrew Thomas after all the injuries and him being out of the lineup for as much as he has been over the last couple of years. So he was my most impressive. My most disappointing is the Giants' defensive line. Like, I understand you're not gonna feast every single week, but this is a Saints offensive line that has struggled a good amount so far, 4 games into the season, going into this 5th game. They had 0 sacks and only 14 pressures total from a group that has Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. Now, I understand that sacks aren't always going to be there every single week, and that should not be the measuring stick that you always have for these players. But 14 total pressures, you should be more disruptive than that, especially against this Saints offensive line that has had its struggles throughout the season. Spencer
Rattler, time to throw, 2.46. And when the pocket was clean, basically making his own clean pockets, 2.02. It's the same idea here against the Giants, just like the Browns.
Just get the ball out of his hands.
Just get rid of. And the Saints, they only made one huge pass play in this game, the big touchdown to Rashid Shaheed. Otherwise, it was just nickel and dime and don't put us in trouble. And we'll see if our defense can win us this game. But if you're playing, I think it's the same thing as the Browns. If you're playing this Giants team, get rid of the football. There's only a handful of teams that can compete in the trenches.
Secondary would probably be what I would say then as an answer to that of like, okay, I'm disappointed at how the defensive line played. Well, you've got to deploy your secondary to where they pay for that, right? A little bit more.
And the Browns run a ton of man-to-man coverage and do it well.
Right.
The Giants don't do it quite as well.
They got to figure out a way to be closer in coverage, playing press, or at least giving the illusion to not being able to get the ball out of their hands as quickly as they are.
Because Rattler threw, let me see this, he threw out of 31 passes, let's say 29 targeted passes. He only threw 7 of them at least 10 yards down the field. It is just this nickel and dime element that you can work your way around this defensive line if you do it right, and that's all you're asking for. Just don't screw it up and don't sit in the pocket too long and get strip sacked or anything like that. I think Kellen Moore had a good idea of what he wanted to do here, and it was just again, I say it all the time, if your line can't protect you, maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, but against this Giants team, probably not. If they can't protect you, protect yourself. I think that's actually a credit to me of Kellen Moore and Spencer Rattler for just knowing, hey, those guys can hurt us more than anybody here.
Most impressive, most disappointing.
Most impressive got to be Brian Brzee. I mean, he made the biggest play of the game with the punch out on Scattaboo. That was returned for a touchdown. That really sealed this game, tilted it in New Orleans' favor. But he had a 90 grade in this game. He only one other time in his career had an 80. So I think you look at Brian Brzee, 4 positive grades in run defense. That's been a struggle for him for a long time. 3 pressures, a batted pass. He just did everything he did. He had the best game of his career at the right time, and he made the biggest play of this game. And then I'm with you on the Giants wide receivers. Somebody's got to step up. You just can't have it. That group, 45.4 receiving grade, 19 targets, 9 catches, 68 yards. Somebody on the outside has to step up, or the Giants are just going to keep getting more and more defenders in the box against them.
Cowboys and the Jets. Dallas wins this game 37-22. Top 5 graded players that we had for Dallas. Wide receiver Ryan Flournoy at the very top of the list with a 90.8 overall grade. Gator great Dante Fowler Jr., 86.3. Next on the list. Running back Javonte Williams, a 75.3. Gator great Kyer Elam.
They're everywhere.
74.0, number 4. Celebrating Florida's big win over Texas on Saturday. Love to see it. Tight end Jake Ferguson, a 72.1. Dak Prescott in this game, a 70.9. And then on the New York Jets side of things, defensive tackle Jawan Briggs with a 79.5. Tight end Mason Taylor, a 79.3. Cornerback Brandon Stevens, a 75.8. Edge rusher Braden McGregor with a 75.0. And then safety Tony Adams, a 70.7. Justin Fields in this one, a 77.7 overall grade. But Dalton, if he's dropping back 61 times, as he did in this game,
it's not great.
The Jets are probably not going to win. And they did not. He had the most dropbacks of any quarterback this week.
Yeah, not what you want.
No. It's just never the script that is going to be a winning formula for this Jets team. Now, I'm not saying that you don't do it. They were at a point where what was the biggest point differential in this one?
30-6, I think, after 3 quarters.
I mean, obviously you're just passing the football after that, so you're doing what you need to do. Those stats are a little overinflated, but and just any time that you see that number for the Jets this year, it's not going to go well. What's your stat that told the story?
So one team came into this game 28th in the league in pass rush grade and facing a starting offensive line. That team, the Cowboys, got a 46% pressure rate and a 57% pass rush win rate.
It's pretty good.
The Cowboys defensive line, which has been obviously maligned all year because they traded Micah Parsons and it hasn't been great, especially rushing the passer. They dominated what's generally been a solid Jets offensive line. And on the other side of it, which may be even more disappointing, the Jets with Quinnen Williams, with Will McDonald, they don't have a ton of depth, but with those 2 guys at least out there, 7 total pressures in this game. 27% pass rush win rate as a team. And the Cowboys, their only starting offensive lineman playing in this game was Terrence Steele. They had 4 backups in and Terrence Steele, and the Jets had a 60 passer rush. They basically were non-existent as pass rushers other than a couple of good reps from Will McDonald. You just can't. I don't think on the Jets side there's a whole lot of excuse for that part of it, is that the Cowboys walked in there with a basically fully backup offensive line, and still that was the better trench unit on the field. And most impressive, just skip to the other side, where the Cowboys defensive line, just give him credit. Dante Fowler, you saw there, 6 pressures and a sack. Oso Odigizua was dominant inside. James Houston, who is in this part-time situational pass rush role.
Which is what he should be in. That's where he's best.
He should, but he's going to have to play a little bit more because he had 5 pressures and 2 sacks in this game. He was really good. He's been really good for a few weeks. They're going to go to him more and more in these pass rush situations. 7 different Cowboys defensive linemen with multiple pressures. 7 of them. I mean, the Jets, it's weird because you kind of thought the trench play would be a reason because the Cowboys' injuries on the O-line and the struggles on the D-line. You kind of thought, okay, maybe this is the week the Jets have enough of a trench advantage where they can stay in or even win this game. And they got blasted in the trenches in this game. And I think there's that, and there's the other element of our good friend Connor Rogers mentioned this on SNY in New York yesterday. Mm-hmm. This Jets team just can't get over mistakes mentally. Mm-hmm. Breece Hall fumbles in the second quarter, and that's just it. The game was pretty much done from there. And it was only 10-3 at that point. But they're just mentally, you can see they were shot. They fumbled again. Here we go again. It's just I mean, the phrase is used all the time, but that's same old Jets right there. It's just they can't stop making mistakes, turnovers, penalties, things of that nature. And B, they're not playing. The very first game of the season, they played with some level of resolve. The Bucs game, they played with some level of resolve, right? They got back in that one. But otherwise, we've seen the better part of 3.5 of the last 4 games they've played with no fight whatsoever. That's tough.
James Houston, Gator Great, by the way. Just wanted to make sure that I shouted that one out.
Cowboys just got all of them. Jeez.
Yeah. Jets blitzing as well. Like, I have to think Aaron Glenn clearly sort of wants to do things his way, right? And I think that there's a lot of allure in that, given sort of what the Jets were, especially last year with how deflated and uninspired this group felt with Robert Saleh. And I do kind of feel for the Robert Saleh era, given the fact that for 2 years, what was it, in 2022, 2023, this is one of the best defenses in the NFL. They just could not have any semblance of an offense whatsoever. And then that third year that Saleh was there, it was all going to hell. So it was not a good year there, and things just went really downhill. The morale was down, all that kinds of stuff. You get Aaron Glenn in, and he's sort of giving you this energy and this confidence that's got a little bit of an alpha style to it, but it's also a little bit of the my way or the highway. And I wonder if it's just, you know what, kind of just need to just let this year be what it is for the Jets.
Well, that's
because it's not his players, it's not his guys, and it just is what it is.
And I know preseason hype and hope is what it is, which is why I try not to say too much about this team in the preseason. But even if they had played really well and not had some of these injuries they have, their ceiling was maybe 5 or 6 wins. And this is a talent-deficient football
team. For sure,
team.
it is.
And those 2 teams that you mentioned that were better than this one during the Robert Saleh era, those teams were more talented than this one.
No, there's no doubt.
Question.
The Jets have – I mean, if you look at the Jets' most talented 7 or 8 players.
They're really good.
They're really good. But you get after player 8 and beyond – they're one of the least talented depth teams in the NFL.
And you look at what they're dealing with. One of those guys would be Elijah Vera Tucker, hasn't played a snap this year, and he won't.
Right.
Another one of those guys, Joe Tittman's playing guard instead of center. Mm-hmm. Quincy Williams is out. Jermaine Johnson. That's 4 guys right there on the list already that are compromised.
Right.
And then you go, Sauce Gardner's in the secondary by himself.
Sure.
And Jamie Sherwood without Quincy Williams is really struggling right now. So I mean, and Garrett's your only receiver, and Breece is your only back. And I mean, you're right. There is a severe lack of depth. They're just not they're not good.
And this goes to your point. They can't create pressure with 4 up front. They can't create pressure blitzing either. Jets 58.6 pass rush grade when blitzing this season is 23rd in the NFL, and they only have 22 total pressures when they have blitzed. That's 29th in the NFL. So this team just they're sending extra bodies to try to get pass rush help, and they can't do it. So they're not a good blitzing team. They're not a good 4-down rushing team. They're just not a talented football team right now, and that's the way it is. And when you combine that script with Justin Fields having to throw the ball as much as he is, I mean, like I said, the stat that told the story to me is there's just not enough offensive diversity with this team. The Jets have one way to win the game. One way. Run the ball. So when the score is 0-0 at the beginning of the game, they're going to do that. They're going to run the ball, and then the second that it's not going well for them, you talk about how they fumbled the football. What was that, in the second quarter, you said?
Yeah.
They fumbled the football in the second quarter. Well, the margin for error of this team is so small to where if you even start to lose the turnover battle, what are you going to do? The rest of the team just goes, well, who we play next week?
Well, and
I don't know if they're doing that for sure, but it's just that's the way that it feels with this team.
And as the stat has been thrown out a million times all over every outlet you've watched in the last 24 hours, they're the first team ever without a takeaway in their first 5 games.
It doesn't help.
That doesn't help.
Yeah, so when you give the ball away, you know you're not getting it back. Yeah, also not ideal. Cowboys won this game. We haven't talked a lot about the Cowboys so far. You talked about their defensive line really stepping up. Ryan Flournoy was fantastic in this game. Shout out to Ben Lindsay and the PFF betting show. When I got in the office on Sunday before the games, Ben told me, he's like, I got the Ryan Flournoy ladder today. And it was like 25 receiving yards, 50 receiving yards, 80 receiving yards that he bet on Ryan Flournoy. I was like, you are a madman. He was like, look, he's going to be their wide receiver too because no CeeDee Lamb, no Kevontae Turpin either. Now, Jake Ferguson was heavily involved in the passing game last week, so he was going to be a factor. But he's like, not only that, but Dak Prescott was asked earlier this week about like guys who needed to step up. And whoever the guy asking the question was, they were like, oh, like you've got George and you got the tight ends and whatever. And Dak like looks at him and goes, I know you didn't mention Ryan Flournoy's name, but he's another one. And it's like, okay, that very clearly Dak's thinking about that connection there. And Flournoy went off. He had a 90.4 receiving grade, 9 receptions, 6 catches, 119 receiving yards. So Ben hit all 3 steps of the ladder. It's incredible to see. Congrats to Ben on that one. 4 first down catches in the first half. This was the guy. He went to Ryan Flournoy was in the CeeDee Lamb role. They kept George Pickens in the George Pickens role. They put Ryan Flournoy in the CeeDee Lamb role. He was the motion man before the snap. He was the first down guy that they were looking for. So really cool to see that from the Cowboys. Really cool to see that from Flournoy, who small school guy. I believe he was drafted in the 6th or 7th round.
Was he drafted? I don't even remember if he was.
I know,
it's Southeast Missouri State, isn't it?
He was talked about pre-draft, so it makes me think that he was drafted. Was he drafted?
Well, we talk about 700 guys.
Well, I know. I felt like he was.
He was drafted in the 6th round.
6th round.
I couldn't remember if he was drafted or not. 6th round. 217 overall.
I'm a draft analyst for a reason. Yeah, he was drafted in the 6th round, and I remember him being drafted in the 6th round, and me being like, okay, all right. Taking a flyer on him. Obviously, it's worked out for him.
It's worked.
Anything else for this game before we move on?
No, I think the only other thing to mention on the part with Flournoy is just how darn well Dak Prescott's throwing the football, man. I mean, he's playing like a top 5, if not top 3 guy this year. You talk about the Cowboys, the one reason they have a pulse despite their struggles on defense and on all their injuries now is Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Heart and soul of that
MVP
team.
candidate.
Yep.
Dak Prescott. Don't you forget it. Denver Broncos traveled to the Philadelphia Eagles and handed them the first loss of the season. Denver wins this game 21-17. Looking back on it, if Denver doesn't blow that game to the Colts, the Broncos would have the 2 most impressive wins in the NFL in Philly and Indianapolis.
Yeah, you could argue it. I mean, New England's up there with that win in Buffalo.
It's true. It's true.
That might be number 1.
But like the Broncos would be in the conversation for having 2 of the best wins in the league so far. 5 weeks through the season.
They'd be in first place, and they had a lead on the Chargers late.
Just saying.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Top 5 great players that we have for the Denver Broncos, though, in this game. Offensive guard Quinn Miners, 80.0. Edge rusher Nick Bonito, 3 games in a row now with a sack, 79.4. Wide receiver Cortland Sutton, who clearly never skips arm day, as you can see in the picture there, 76.0. Cornerback Jaquan McMillan, with a 71.8. Tight end Evan Ingram with a 68.3. Bo Nix in this one, a 70.7. On Philly side of things, edge rusher Josh Uche, an 88.6. Offensive guard Tyler Steen with an 84.4. Offensive tackle Lane Johnson, 81.2. Wide receiver Devontae Smith, an 80.5. Linebacker Jahad Campbell, a 75.6. And Jalen Hurts, who also doesn't skip arm day. Should mention that. 80.5.
700-pound squat, too, or whatever it is, right?
That's why the tush push always works, man. It's so funny. Everybody's just like, why don't we just do the tush push? And then you watch other teams do it, and you go, oh, That's why.
Wait,
we don't have a quarterback.
weight room. Yeah. Yeah, if there's any
moving that much iron in the weight room.
Yeah, if there's any Carolina Panthers fans asking why you don't do that, there is a difference.
There is a difference.
Anyway.
Stat that told the story. What do we got?
This is just not the same Eagles offense as last year.
No, it is not.
I think it's just, when you talk about 11 designed runs, and one of them was a kneel down, and I think another one was called back due to a holding.
Saquon had one carry in the second half.
Yeah. Officially, yeah, he got. There was another one negated because of a holding, but
official carries.
But I just think about, that's exactly what I think about. Is I go, this is the one team in the NFL last year that ran more than they threw it, and they had a lead in this game.
Yeah,
and
no, it didn't. This game felt like we got to make the wide receivers happy game.
Yeah,
right.
And the problem is you're playing this defense, and the Broncos secondary hadn't been playing great, but they shadowed Surtain on A.J. Brown. They basically shadowed Riley Moss on Devontae Smith, which they took advantage of a couple of times, right? And a couple of 3 or 4 times they used Goddard on the flat, the RPO look. But there was just no offensive plan in this game. It's just, okay, the Broncos are going to run a lot of man, and we got some go balls. The wheel to Barkley out of the backfield was the best play call of the day, and that put them up 17-3. And at that point, you go, okay, we're going to run the football, right? Up 17-3, Trev, they called 8 straight passes on their next 2 drives. Up 17-3.
Again,
this team was last year, the best thing about this team, other than just blanketing the run game and the offensive line and all that, the best thing about this team last year was they had a closer. And they knew when they got to the fourth quarter with a lead, that last year, this game, halfway through the third with a 14-point lead, the game was over. You could shut the TV off. They're just refusing to run the football. They're refusing to. It's not that they can't. Barkley, the handful of times that he got to, looked solid. They're 10 design runs for an entire game. That's not Eagles football. That's not anybody's football, to be honest with you. This is stuff that I complained about, say, last week with the Arizona Cardinals, who are struggling. The Eagles right now, the only consistent thing they have going for them on offense, and this is, to me, this is a page right out of the Chiefs playbook last year. The only thing right now we know they can do consistently, they just don't give the football away. They're tied with the Chiefs for the fewest giveaways in football. Other than just straight up not turning the football over, they don't do much of anything well right now. And it's in large part because now they're choosing not to when it comes to the run game.
It's just very strange that they would not run again, I'm not kidding when I say that this felt like a game where they felt like they had to get their wide receivers involved. And maybe they thought to themselves, hey, we're up 17-3. We have a buffer now. So let's just throw the ball and get AJ some catches. Let's get Devontae some catches. Let's get Jahan Dotson some catches. Let's just get these guys some catches. Why else would you call 8 straight pass plays? What are we doing? You got Saquon Barkley. The offensive line was playing well.
The other thing that
Philly's offensive line played well, even without Landon Dickerson. When Landon Dickerson went out, I thought the offensive line played really well.
Tyler Steen was right up there. Yeah.
And I can also understand, they're pass protecting well against Denver's defensive line, which is impressive. So, maybe we just keep trying to pass the ball. But I would have leaned more into that and said, hey, we're handling Denver's defensive line. Run the ball. Run the football. I don't know. This was one of those games where, look, I think some of this gets overblown because it's Philly and because it's Nick Sirianni, and obviously they're the reigning champs, so everything's going to be under a microscope. But, this was also something last year. I think some of these narratives get a little bit overblown, but I don't really understand what happened yesterday with Philly other than they tried to make their wide receivers happy. I don't know what the thought process was outside of that.
I don't know.
Because if you want to say that Denver's secondary had been struggling this year, that's fine. But you got up. You were up 17-3. If this was the game plan for them right out of the gate, fine. I don't necessarily, I can understand at least how you got to that point. But you were up 17-3 in this game. The script flips to, okay, we are up multiple scores in this game now. We have Saquon Barkley and an offensive line that is absolutely kicking their ass. Let's get after it. Let's shorten this game, and let's get out of here with a win. And it felt like they were like, no, we've got a buffer now. Let's start throwing some go balls.
Oh, it felt like a lack of urgency,
Let's just try to get these guys. It felt like they felt like they were playing with house money, and they got bit for it at the end.
Yeah, and it should say a lot to me about their offense that when Sean Payton did have a chance to tie and instead elected for 2 to go up 18-17, think about what that says. Because that's with about, 7-8 minutes to go in the game, right? Think about what that says. That's not just Sean Payton getting a lead. That's, if we don't get this, we'll make a stop anyway. We'll be fine.
How about Sean Payton going for 2?
I mean, seriously, I just that to me says something more disrespectful about Philly's offense than it does even about him getting a lead with 8 minutes left. And he never does that. He doesn't do that. That tells me he knew he was getting a stop. He absolutely that Philly was not scoring, no chance. And if that's what we're looking at, again, that's the one redeeming thing about Philly's offense right now is that they don't turn the football over. But right now they look like last year's Chiefs, where we all know something's wrong. And one of these days it's going to get them. Maybe it won't be all the way till the Super Bowl, just like last year's Chiefs. But they can't play with this lack of urgency and this lack of balance. They just cannot.
Yeah, I agree. Lack of balance is a big issue in this one. I thought Courtland Sutton was awesome in this game.
Yep.
I wasn't able to find exactly what his receiving grade and receiving numbers were when Quinyon Mitchell was on him, but he had a fantastic day even with when Quinyon Mitchell was on him in coverage. So he was fantastic, a 76.4 overall receiving grade. He was the wide receiver 1 that they needed him to be, and he has been through a couple of games so far this season. I think that, myself included, you go into this season with Denver and you say, okay, like Courtland Sutton, he's a good wide receiver. Is he enough to be their wide receiver 1 that they might need him to be every single week? And I actually do think that he has lived up to that billing. Now, I'm not saying that he's a tier 1 wide receiver, but even a game like this is awesome to know he has the capabilities to do this. So when Courtland Sutton is playing like that, it opens everything else up. It opens up the other receivers. It opens up the run game. It opens up the tight end passing game. When you have that wide receiver 1 that the other team has to say, all right, we're going to put our best cover corner on this guy, or you go, all right, we're going to put our best cover corner on this guy, but he still needs help. Okay, we're going to shift the safeties over a little bit more. Now you're changing the whole game plan. Now you have a defense on their heels. So it all starts with when Courtland Sutton is playing really well. And then the Eagles cornerbacks. I agree with you. I know this is the most disappointing for you, but they were just not as good in this game as they have been in games earlier this season.
And that's after the game last week against Tampa Bay that I thought Quinyon Mitchell was best player.
Fantastic.
He was the best player on the field.
And that's corner. That's playing corner,
yeah.
Right? You're good day, bad day. There is no position where you could have a good game, bad game, and it be as fluid as it is a corner.
Yeah.
But
I'm not as worried. I'm not worried at all, really, about Quinyon long term. It's more that other spot, though, we have seen between Adoree Jackson and Kaylee Ringo, where it has been more of a struggle. And you wonder eventually, and I know, again, we talk about the Eagles' offensive issues a lot, but you wonder eventually if they start sniffing the trade market or some sort of acquisition for another corner on that other side. Or
haven't thought of that.
Or you mess with the alignments and you mess around with Cooper DeJean a little bit more in an inside and outside role, a la Trent McDuffie, because he's playing exclusively in the slot, and that's the structure of the defense. But is that going to continue to be a problem on the other side away from Mitchell?
Anything else before we move on?
Most impressive. Yeah, look, the one guy who shows up every week up front for Denver, Nick Bonito's a freak of nature, man.
He's awesome.
He is a freak of nature. He got the contract extension. He got 3 sacks in this game.
He's making a lot of draft prospects in this upcoming class some more money this year, because there's a lot of DPR. There's a lot of designated pass rushers that are coming through this 2026 draft class specifically that I think you are just going to hear so many analysts and even teams go, yeah, but look at Nick Bonito.
But even if a player like that doesn't end up the superstar that Bonito is, if you can rush the passer, you have a place in the NFL.
Of course.
Because every team needs them, and they need more than just 3 or 4 of them. You get teams now rolling 6, 7, 8 deep on these defensive lines. I think that's really the lesson to me here. And I know traits are the traits, and arm length and height and weight and all that stuff. But if you know how to rush the passer, there is a place for you somewhere in the league for sure. He's just taken as full an advantage of it as he possibly can. What an unbelievable player he is.
I mean, we just talked about James Houston though too.
Yep.
Somebody in the chat. I assume that they're a Cowboys fan, saying that like James Houston almost got cut from this team. And
Right.
now he's out here having a major impact just because the one thing that he does really well is just rush the passer. And if you could do that, let's say you get 5-6 sacks a year. Those 5-6 plays could be huge when it comes to swinging who wins and who loses a game. So the NFL is always going to try to find guys like that. Before we get to the next game, there are some things that school maybe didn't teach you when you were a little bit younger, like how to handle the financial world or how to have a plan now to have success in the future. That includes for your kids. Fabric makes it easy to plan for that investment strategy for your kids to make sure that you're setting themselves, you are setting them up for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With the kids' investment account from Fabric, you guys can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but a UGMA kids investment account specifically allows you to invest on their behalf, gives their investments so much more time to grow. Funds can be used for basically anything to benefit your child. When they're a little bit younger, maybe you're helping them with tuition, books, summer camps, after-school activities, sports, whatever that looks like. And then maybe when they're a little bit older, they're into that young adult phase. You're helping them buy that first house, first car, start a business, whatever that looks like. There's no contribution limits to this. It's got multiple tax advantages for you. It's all online. Setting up an account takes you as little as just 5 minutes. Getting started investing right now with as little as $1 a day, and you can manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, Dalton, we've seen some people in the chat talking about this one already. Dolphins, Panthers.
Fun one. This was a fun game.
Was it?
It sure was. Do you think it was? Or not, for any reason?
I don't know. A lot of weird football in this one.
Weird is fun.
A lot of bad football to start, then some worse football to end. But the Carolina Panthers end up winning this one 27-24, defending home turf in Charlotte. They're 2-0 in Charlotte, right?
Is it both home games? Are they 0-3 on the road? Is that what we're doing here? And 2-0 at home?
I'll have to check
that.
Top 5 graded players that we have for the Carolina Panthers. Edge rusher Nick Scorton with an 89.6. Great to see the rookie at the top of the list there. Defensive tackle Derek Brown, of course, great to see him there as well with an 88.0. Safety Trayvon Merrick with an 87.6. Linebacker Christian Rosemoon with an 83.6. Season high grade for him there. Offensive guard Damian Lewis, a 76.4. And then Bryce Young in this one, a 68.2. On Miami's side of things, Darren Waller, he's back, folks. 88.3 in this one. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle, an 86.3. Safety Minka Fitzpatrick, a 78.1. Linebacker Jordan Brooks, 71.9. Center Aaron Brewer with a 71.8. Tua Tagovailoa in this game, 90.5. Wasn't his fault. Dalton, what was the stat that told the story here?
I think, like you mentioned it was kind of ugly there for Bryce Young and the Panthers early. If you logged into Twitter, probably somewhere between 1:45 and 2 Eastern yesterday, you would have thought Carolina was burning down. Dave Canales was gone. Bryce Young was gone. They were burning down the stadium, the whole thing. They were down 17-0, awfully quick.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, you were getting there. A lot of people did get there. I mean, you look at the way the early parts of this game went. Bryce Young with a fumble on their first drive, with an interception on an overthrow on the next drive, looking ugly. The Panthers only had 32 yards because of that on their first 2 drives, compared to 150 for the Dolphins and 17 points. But the Panthers, they punched back. And you know what? Credit to them. Credit to Dave Canales and Bryce Young for just staying in the pocket and going, okay, take a breath. We screwed up the first 18, 20 minutes. Let's get back on track here. You're going to get into the run game. They kept running the football despite being down 17. That's good to see. Mm-hmm. And how many times, because we talked about, last week we talked about the double-digit losses, right, for the Panthers, and how many, there's been way too many of them over the last year and a half. Could have been the same way here. They could have easily gone and just lost this game 35-0 and got out, right? 27 points the rest of the way. Obviously, that's the winning 27-24, 6.9 yards per play after those first 2 drives. Bryce Young, you take out the overall grade for the game looks a little more average, a 68. Take out those first 2 drives, 79.1. That's solid stuff. Bryce Young made 5 big-time throws in this game. He was really good down the stretch, and obviously the run game got it going. And then the Dolphins, it works on the other side too. Up 17-0, went ice cold. They didn't run the football either. After their first 3 drives, only 98 yards and 46 of them on the late Jalen Waddle touchdown. They basically, the middle part of this game, the Dolphins didn't move the ball at all, and it just completely flipped, and the Panthers clawed all the way back, and then Waddle scored, and then the Panthers scored again. We got a wild ending, but this was a strange hot and cold football game. But the Panthers scored last, and props to them for coming back again down 17-0 because there's a lot of games over the last year and a half where they wouldn't even bothered.
Cardiac Cats. Somebody in the chat is saying that Roseboom did not have the green dot for this game as the communicator with the defense coordinator, and that Trevor Wallace had it instead, and both seemed to play better with that. So perhaps that might have been something where
sometimes you just change the mojo and see what happens.
Roseboom, I just maybe felt more free to sort of just like take the play and go, okay, this is exactly what I need to do, instead of maybe focusing on the communication with the rest of the team. Maybe that is something there, but I did not know that. So shout out to the chat for pointing that out. You say that this was, a game where the in-between that the Dolphins really struggled. I think the Dolphins really struggled for the majority of this game. So they had an 11-play drive to start the game, ended in a field goal. A 14-play drive the next time out, ended in a touchdown. A 5-play drive that also ended in a touchdown. I believe that was off of the Bryce Young fumble.
I thought both touchdowns. No, maybe you're right. Maybe both touchdowns didn't.
No, that was
turnovers.
The first one was off of the fumble. The second one was off of the interception, which they got at midfield. So they scored a touchdown quickly there as well. But after that, this is how many plays the Dolphins' drives had: 3, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, which happened to be that touchdown, and then 3, and then the game's over. You talk about hot and cold. It doesn't get any hotter and colder than that. And the reason why is because the Dolphins cannot run the football, or won't. I don't know which answer it is. Now, I think it's more of that they can't because of their offensive line, and I'll get to that in a second. But the Dolphins had 19 rushing yards in this game. The Carolina Panthers had 239. I'll get to Rico Dowdle in a second. Yeah. I know people in the chat are like, yo, where's Rico Dowdle's name? I'll get to Rico Dowdle in a second. 19 to 239. I would be shocked if there's any team that wins a football game like that. And if they do, I bet the record is 1 in 155, whatever it is. This is not independent of this game either. The Dolphins this season, 411 rushing yards. That is 29th in the NFL through 5 games. And yet they have allowed 871 rushing yards. That is the most in the NFL. So they have almost the worst rushing attack on offense and the worst rushing defense on defense. You're just not going to win many football games like that.
No, listen, this offensive line, I could see that even when you talk about the close loss that they had to New England. They're just completely handcuffed on offense. They can't block anybody, and Tua can't improvise. So there's a very small window of offensive options that they have, which is now without Tyreek Hill essentially Jalen Waddle one-on-one or Devon Achane somewhere hopefully in space. Well, that's their entire offense.
Well, we talked about this. I can't remember if it was for the review show that we did last Monday or it was the preview show that was on Wednesday. I looked up the EPA per play numbers, when they targeted Tyreek Hill versus when they targeted literally anyone else. And Tyreek Hill was over half a point. The EPA per play was like 0.68 something. And then when they targeted anyone else, it was almost 0. That's crazy. So the offense was always basically just Tyreek Hill and nothing else when it came to explosiveness and how to actually move the ball down the field. All respect to Jalen Waddle. I'm not saying that Jalen Waddle is a good player, or not a good player, but they just haven't been able to get him the football in that way. And then when it comes to running the ball, 36.7 run blocking grade as a team this week. That's never going to get it done. We have impact and defeated run blocking percentages, which basically means, for those that might be new to the PFF system, An impact run blocking play means that you earned a positive grade. A defeated run blocking play means that you earned a negative grade. Now, that could be anything from a negative 0.5, negative 1, negative 1.5, anything there. And then the same can be said on the opposite for positive plays. The Dolphins as a team had a 61.5 defeated run blocking percentage. That means that more than 50% of their run blocking snaps that they had for their offensive linemen had a negative grade to it. You are never going to win football games like that because you are not going to be able to run and control the football the way that you need to. And until that gets better, it doesn't matter what Tua Tagovailoa does. It doesn't matter what plays Mike McDaniel calls. It doesn't matter what what Jalen Waddle is in Tyreek Hill's absence. It does not matter. Those numbers in the run game are bad. And they are so bad that we're talking about the Dolphins winning 3 games this season. I don't know how you win if you have statistics like that as a running team. So those were do you have any thoughts on the Dolphins further? Because I want to talk about Rico Dowdle, but just any thoughts there?
Nope, just that, look, they have the second lowest graded offensive line in the league ahead of Cincinnati, and if you take out an okay showing in week 1, they're actually pretty clearly the worst offensive line in the league. So that's just, especially with the quarterback you're dealing with, that's just what you're going to get on a weekly basis. Let's be real, their one win is against the Jets. That's basically the Dolphins are better than the Jets, and I think that's an accurate thing to say all the way around.
So people will wonder, where was Rico Dowdle's name on that top 5 list? So to be fair, Rico Dowdle would have been 6th, I think. So he was just one missing from the top 5. He was right there. He had, I think it was a 75.9 rushing grade in this game. He had 23 carries, 206 rushing yards, a 9.0 yards per attempt average, and 1 touchdown in this one. The reason why Dowdle wasn't in that top 5 and maybe having a higher grade than you would expect for a guy who had 206 rushing yards is, 1, total volume, just the volume of carries that he had. 23 carries. He was tied for the most in the NFL this week with Quinshon Judkins. Whenever you have more carries that maybe you're not doing anything spectacular with, sometimes the spectacular ones go down a little bit. And after rewatching all 23 of Rico Dowdle's carries, a lot of those carries were really well-blocked run blocking plays. And I specifically want to shout out, my most impressive was the Panthers run blocking in this game. Taylor Moton, Christensen, Lewis, all of those guys had a run blocking grade above 71. They were a top 10 impact run blocking percentage team on the week this week. And when you watch those good Rico Dowdle runs, a lot of times the running lane is right in front of him. I mean, they are moving the Dolphins defensive linemen off the ball and creating that rushing lane very easy. So Dowdle still had a handful of runs where he was able to create yards after contact, which he got credit for. But it's not like there were a bunch of, he made like 3 guys miss on one play where he got like a +1 or a +1.5. There just weren't a plethora of those. It was, in my opinion, more of a hat tip to how well the Panthers' offensive line was doing in the run game, and Rico Dowdle being a benefactor of that. So still a really good rushing performance. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier in the show, a 75 is not average. Don't think of it like a school grade. A 60.0 is an average, replaceable level grade and performance on PFF's 1 through 100 scale. So a 75.9 is still a really good day rushing the football. But the reason why it's a little bit lower is just that higher carry volume, which probably just took away from maybe some of those more runs where he got those positive plays. And I will shout out that he did have the highest rushing grade for any player that had 15 or more carries. So Panthers fans, again, I know you might be freaking out sort of watching that, but I want you to know, we don't think that 75.9 is a bad score for Rico Dowdle at all whatsoever. That signifies a good day at the office for Rico.
And actually, I think they might have gone through one more sweep because he's up to overall 78.7, which would be 5th on the team.
Okay.
I think they went through. I think he moved up. They looked at him one more time just to make sure, and I think he went from 6th on the team to 5th there. But also those first 4 guys on defense, the Panthers defense, They were put in bad spots early with the 2 turnovers, but they were outstanding in this game. So, no, Dowdle with just an absolutely awesome day, especially with Chuba Hubbard out. You go, okay, Rico's stepping, just like last year when he had to step into a starting role. Can he step up? He did last year. And in this game, he was fantastic. You talk about the Panthers, again, being able to claw their way back in down 17, and Dave Canales not having to abandon the run game. It is a big-time performance from him, absolutely.
Most impressive, most disappointing? Because I already said mine there.
I could pick a lot of guys. I mean, the most disappointing, just the Dolphins, their offensive line, and then any wide receiver not named Jalen Waddle. Malik Washington had 4 catches for 0 yards, which is actually, I think, more impressive than not catching anything, to be honest with you.
It's tough to do.
And no other receiver even got a target. So no Tyreek Hill. There's just nothing else. And then most impressive was this was I know the offensive line is what it is for Miami. This was game record type stuff from Derek Brown. This is the Derek Brown you wanted to see healthy back in there. That they absolutely need. This was the first time we've seen this run defense look like this in a long, long time, but also a 90 pass rush grade, just under a 19% pass rush win rate. Derek Brown was the surface, and this is always the case with him anyway. The surface level stats are going to tell you, he was okay, he had a sack, that's cool. He was outstanding, and he was just a monster inside for Carolina, as he should be.
Some other just quick Carolina points. Xavier Legette catching that ball in the end zone. Just a beautiful pass from Bryce at the back of the end zone there. That was great to see. Tetro McMillan, as involved as he is in the offense, obviously great to see. Bryce still up and down, right? Really tough first half and start to the game for him with the interception and then the fumble. And even the second half, like, it wasn't perfect for him, but I still feel like Bryce is just being hesitant right now. He's just a little gun shy. I don't see that same sort of confidence that he played with when he was at Alabama. And even what I saw from him last year, he just seems a little gun shy still, I think, because of some of the mistakes that he's had already this season.
This might be a big one, though, for him, because you mentioned
the
throw in the end zone to Legette. There was another throw later in the game to Legette that he caught. That was a big-time play. There was a huge 4th and 5 on I believe, the drive they took the lead on to Jimmy Horn on an out route. That was just,
they got him involved this week.
I don't know that Horn was active in any of the previous weeks. I'd have to check that. But, I mean, I think it is a trusting. He clearly trusts McMillan, as he should. McMillan, he's been trusting the entire way. It's the rest of them. So can you get Legette to continue to step up? Can you get Jimmy Horn maybe to make a play or two each game? Mitchell Evans catching the winning touchdown, right? I mean, these are the types of guys. Tommy Tremble, right? Wasn't he the one that he had a pretty good game last week too? Can we get these guys to play more consistently around Young and McMillan? And then he's got trust, because that's what happened last year, is that he trusted Adam Thielen. It's crazy as it sounds. He trusted David Moore. I think that's just that's what part of it goes into, is just, can he trust those guys to make those tight window catches? And then he'll start firing it in there.
They're starting to believe, Dalton. You're giving them reason to believe.
What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not your.
I don't get to have that.
It's not normally your gig.
No, because I don't get to have it.
I know.
We have the one defeated team in football. Feels bad.
Hey, draft season though.
Oh, it's already started.
Well, yeah, kind of. Tune into the NFLSC mock draft that we have later today, the live stream, where the Jets are picking number 1 overall because we updated the draft order.
Check out the mock draft on the college show.
I didn't watch it yet because I want to go into our mock draft, sort of with a clear mind, and then I'll watch it after because I want to see who you pick.
We don't offer much when it comes to a clear mind, me and Max. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Max isn't still watching, so he's not going to take offense to that. Speaking of offensive, the Houston Texans at the Baltimore Ravens, 44-10, the final score here. Texans win this one big. Houston's top 5 graded players that we had in this game: edge rusher Will Anderson Jr., a 92.0, cornerback Jalen Petrie getting 2 interceptions in this one, and a 90.3 overall grade. Linebacker Henry To'o with an 88.9. Defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, an 88.1. Defensive tackle Tim Settle, an 88.0. Dalton, if your 5th ranked player still has an 88.0, you probably won the football game.
The crazier part about that set of guys, the Ravens officially only ran 40 offensive plays, which is nuts. I had to just throw away our 25 snap thing because Anderson played like 22. I think Settle was under that too. I just had to toss it for this game because almost nobody on the Texans actually got above 25 snaps. So I just had to go, okay, here it is, because the Ravens only ran 40 offensive plays. That's how dominant this game was.
C.J. Stroud at 78.9. And then on Baltimore's side of things, their wide receiver Zay Flowers is at the top of the list, is the highest graded player, 79.0. Defensive tackle Travis Jones is 75.0. Cornerback Nate Wiggins is 71.8. Linebacker Trenton Simpson is 65.8. Defensive tackle Basil Okoye with a 74.0, and then Cooper Rush, who was starting for the injured Lamar Jackson, a 67.7. Dalton, you want to know what my stat that told the story is?
Sure.
Davis Mills played.
Good backup.
That's it.
I can appreciate
That's
Davis
my
Mills.
stat that told the story. Davis Mills played in this game, and it's not because C.J. Stroud got hurt. That is the stat that told the whole story. The Texans whooped on them so bad that Davis Mills played, which I don't think anybody would have ever in their right mind could have possibly predicted for Texans-Ravens Week 5 in Baltimore when the season began. But it really was. This is rock bottom for the Baltimore Ravens. It has to be. Now, understandably so. I know the team afterwards is like, oh, we don't want to make excuses for injury. Go look at their injury list. It's an all-pro list. It's Roquan Smith. It's Ronnie Stanley. It's Lamar Jackson.
Oh, I just look at even.
Who else was it?
Matabike's out for the year.
Matabike's on IR. Kyle Hamilton.
Ronnie Stanley was out. If you
I
mentioned.
said that.
Okay.
Marlon Humphrey. All of these guys.
I mean, I look at the defensive list here. This actually strikes me more than the injuries. Here we go. You ready for this? Here's their snap leaders. Here's the list of guys. Their top 7 guys in snaps on defense. All right. Malachi Starks, rookie. Teddy Buchanan, rookie. Ruben Lowry, undrafted rookie. Trenton Simpson was just benched a couple weeks ago in favor of Teddy Buchanan.
Redemption.
TJ Tampa, second-year guy who didn't play much last year. Nate Wiggins, second-year guy.
New era.
John Jenkins, 36 years old. John Jenkins played 53 snaps in this game. That's their 7. You just look at. You're
either a rookie or you're 36. That's
yes. I mean, legitimately,
defense.
That's where we're at now. I mean, but in all seriousness, even if Lamar Jackson gets healthy, where this defense is, this is even worse than their defense played the first half of last season. Last season, they were still pretty good up front. The secondary was struggling. They figured out the secondary. I don't know if they can figure it out on defense this time. Between the injuries, one, but even with Roquan in the last couple weeks, even with Matabike in, and Kyle Hamilton's obviously a difference maker, they're just not very good on defense. And this game, you could see the youth that was out there because just missed assignments and blown coverages and things like that. I mean, they just did not – they made a Texans team that outside of the fourth quarter of last week had been struggling badly all year. They made them look like the 07 Patriots. I mean, it was just – and actually the Texans, I should say too, my stats kind of the same as yours. They scored on every drive that Stroud was in this game. Mm-hmm. 36 minutes of time of possession. This is the Houston Texans we're talking about.
36
minutes. The official play count gets me the most because it's 66-40. The Ravens ran 40 plays on offense. And for the Texans, this was their highest graded offensive game since their wild card win 2 years ago over the Browns. I mean, it's just the Ravens' defense over the past.
You want to know what their O-line grade was in this one?
Oh, boy.
The Texans.
The Texans. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
80.9.
Right.
Their season high before this was 66.
Yeah. I mean, they
didn't change anything. It's the same guys.
It's the type of game you're dealing with here, is that the Ravens at this point, right this minute, they're so depleted they pretty much can't win football games. But even when they get healthy, if they have even enough wins at that point, who's to say they're not 1-5, 1-6, 1-7, whatever's going on here now? If they're this depleted, they can't win. And I'm not sure they can win a whole lot with their defense. The last 3 weeks, not just this week, the last 3 weeks, they're easily the lowest graded defense in football. This is I don't care if Lamar's in there or not. You can't make stops. Other than the Browns game, because they're the Browns, they haven't been able. Sorry, Ty. They haven't been able to make stops. I mean, it's just one of those. It's just one of those things where they haven't made stops all year, and right now we have no indication that they're going to.
Tyler yelled out, "Hey!" so loud, I thought the door was open to the production suite.
No, I'm not saying the Browns. They are what they are. They're NFL Iowa, 17-14 every week, man.
Yeah, but isn't Iowa like 8-4, 9-3 every year?
They do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. They make you aware of their presence. That's the way I can put that.
Ravens offensive line in this great game. You mentioned okay, well, even if Lamar comes back, I mean, the Ravens offensive line, I know they didn't have Ronnie Stanley in this game, but 45.2 overall blocking grade, 49.4 run blocking grade in this one. Tyler Linderbaum is the only offensive lineman with an impact run blocking percentage in the double digits. Everybody else was single digits. Some of these guys had 0. It's just not good enough. Why would you want to throw Lamar behind this offensive line at this point? I will say, as we kind of move on from the Ravens, they're bad. They're bad. They're hurt. That's sort of the story here for Baltimore. Until they get more healthy, I don't know how much more evaluation we're going to get now at this point for the Ravens that are 1-4 on the season. Texans, I've complained about how bad I feel like they have been in the red zone. They were good in the red zone this week, and again, it's the Ravens, which we talked about. They're straight up not having a good time this season. But Texans 4 for 5 in the red zone in this game, 4 for 4 in the goal-to-go situations. I went back and I watched all the red zone snaps, and it just felt more cohesive this week. Now, obviously, it's easier to look more cohesive when the plays that you're calling are working, especially the run plays, because it felt like that's where they were really struggling in weeks past. Like for their game against the Buccaneers, I was very critical about how they called plays and their execution in the red zone. Well, they weren't really able to run the football because they weren't able to run the football because their offensive line couldn't get any push. So the Buccaneers were sort of just in their face the whole time they tried to run the football. So it was easier today because they had the ability, or it was easier yesterday, because they had the ability to do that. But I think that this is encouraging, at least. This is a confidence booster. Nick Caley feels better about who he is as a play caller and a play designer and everything in the red zone, and that is a big part of this Texans team. If they're going to build off of this moving forward, I think that's a tangible takeaway, is they actually were able to perform better in the red area, which I think is huge.
They were able to run the football. 2 weeks in a row now, They've had their best day of the year running the football. Woody Marks, Nick Chubb in this game was their leading rusher. Good to see him back out there healthy and doing some good things. So if they have some sort of balance and their offensive line plays reasonably well, then this Texans team can get back on track, especially with guys like Will Anderson dominating on their defense. I mean, even in short order in this game, 22 snaps, but he got 4 pressures. He had a 38% pass rush win rate and only 7 run defense snaps, but he got a positive grade on 3 of them. So, I mean, look, there's no question about their defense. They just have to – now, days like this on your offense aren't going to come around very often, like to this level of dominance. But we have now seen it 2 weeks in a row. Just block enough people and have a little bit of balance, and maybe they scratch their way back into where the Colts and the Jaguars are right now in that division.
Mm-hmm. I think the most tangible takeaway from this one is I just think that it's a confidence booster for the Texans. And somebody in the chat was saying this as well, that Nick Caley, more creative in this game, more play action under center, felt like he was just making things a little bit easier for Stroud, which I think is important. And those are the building blocks that you really take away from this game after beating a Ravens team that's just sort of a shell of itself right now. The Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks, what a thriller this was.
Game of the day.
38-35. Tampa wins it at the very end. 4-1 on the season. Baker Mayfield with 3 comeback fourth quarter wins now on the road this season. I think that he has got a case in the MVP race as well. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Buccaneers in this game in their win. Wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, who grew up in the Seattle area. Back home. 88.9 overall grade. What a start to the season he's having. Offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs, an 82.7. Tight end Cade Otton with a 79.1. Defensive tackle Logan Hall, a 71.6. What's the PFF grade on him getting blasted in the head with the football and then it just going straight to Levante David? Does he get a positive grade for that?
I could look into that.
Hard
maybe. Depends how high he jumps.
That's what I'm saying.
I know you're always
could be a heady play.
I know you're always vouching for the Bucs. So let me look at it.
Running back Rachaad White with a 71.3. Good to see that with Bucky Irving not in the game, and then Baker Mayfield a 92.2 overall grade in this one, rushing and passing grades included there. On Seattle side of things, tight end A.J. Barner, top man on the list with an 87.9. Running back Kenneth Walker, an 83.5. Defensive tackle Byron Murphy II, an 83.3. Safety Nicky Manwari back in the lineup, but he was banged up a little bit in this one as well, 84.1. Offensive tackle Abraham Lucas, an 81.3. And then Sam Darnold, a 79.3. Dalton, I think that those top fives there, specifically with Seattle having 5 guys in the 80s and yet losing this football game, just goes to show how good of a game this was and how fun this was and how this is a legitimate playoff matchup. These two teams could absolutely be meeting somewhere in the NFC playoffs when January rolls around. What was the stat that told the story for you?
I think for me, like you mentioned, just the back and forth nature, especially in the second half of this game, was unbelievable. And you look at EPA per pass for these two teams. I'm just going to go with both. The Bucks, 0.657, very high, good stuff. Seattle, 0.607. All right, so I'm like, you know what? When's the last time? How many times have we had opposing teams with EPA per pass figures that high? Turns out only been done 3 other times since 2006. The last time was week 7 of 2019, a game between Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and Derek Carr and the Raiders. That's a game where both teams were this efficient in the passing game. Has not happened in 6 years. That's the type of shootout we got in this game. It almost reminded me, too, of, remember that old Peyton Manning, Tony Romo, Broncos Cowboys shootout that, like, both guys played a perfect game, and then Romo threw an interception, and that was the difference of the. It was almost.
I don't remember that game.
You don't remember? That's a classic.
Now I got to look it up afterwards.
It was Peyton Manning versus Tony Romo, and they I think they both threw for like 5 touchdowns, and it was just one of the greatest shootouts ever. And then Romo throws one pick, just like kind of like Darnold did in this game, and that was it. And just game-winning field goal over. It was one mistake it came down to, and you mentioned the pick off Logan Hall's helmet, but both quarterbacks were just unbelievably good. Both of them. For the entire game, we only gave them a negative grade on 2 throws, each of them.
Dude, I believe
the
it.
entire game. That's just
So
unbelievable.
that goes into my stat that told the story, because the story in this one was how good this game was, right? Like, the Buccaneers win this one. It's another comeback, again, 4th quarter win for Baker Mayfield, which I think goes into his MVP campaign, all of that. But, like, the real takeaway in this one is that these two teams are legit. Like, both of these teams, Seattle was down defensive starters. Tampa was down all sorts of starters, and yet they still were able to perform like this. When they get a lot of these guys back, I mean, can you imagine fully healthy rosters if these two teams match up in the playoffs? It's going to be fireworks. It's going to be incredible. And the stat that told the story for me, sort of going off of what you just said, with a limited number of negative plays in this one, Sam Darnold, what was the whole thing about him in his career? Seeing ghosts, can't deal with pressure. Even going to last year, those 2 last games that he played as a Minnesota Viking, those are the games where he was pressured and he crumbled under that pressure. In this game, both of these quarterbacks under pressure were fantastic. Now, I want people to remember this. You see that some passing grades out there that'll be 70s, 80s, sometimes low 90s, those elite grades like that. When you get under pressure, the really good passing grades under pressure are like in the 60s. Like, that's a really good passing grade under pressure. 50s is like, okay, it's fine. 40s, 30s, okay, you're really getting affected by the pressure, and you're probably having a handful of negative plays on your team. But to be honest with you, if you are low 70s, mid 60s, high 60s as a passer under pressure, that's a good score. Darnold in this one, 78.9 passing grade under pressure in the second half. Baker Mayfield, 80.1 passing grade under pressure in the second half. Now, I think Darnold had about 9 or 10 dropbacks that he was under pressure in the second half, and Baker Mayfield only had 3. So Darnold did have more, but both of those scores are fantastic, especially for in the second half, right? So the game starts, the defense is playing a certain way, they adjust in the second half, we get into the 4th quarter. These defensive coordinators know what they need to do, or at least know what they want to do, I think, against these quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks continued to answer. That is what made this game so fun, and it was so fun to see these two guys who have been journeyman quarterback around the NFL, now in solidified positions where Darnold signs that 3-year deal in Seattle, just like Baker Mayfield signed that 3-year deal when he was with the Buccaneers. Darnold playing really well to start the season, and this was a game where he could have crumbled, and he didn't. Now, if it was on the road, I'd give him even more props, so we'll wait to see a game where he's really heavily pressured when he is on the road. But kudos to him, kudos to Baker Mayfield, and we were all the benefactors of watching a really good game between two really good teams.
It was just fantastic. And I'll tell you what, Trev, if you want to, on both sides of this, if you need a wide receiver, send a scout to Columbus.
Just go to Ohio State, man.
Just go to Columbus.
Just go to Ohio State.
You don't need to go anywhere else.
As long as Brian Hartline is the wide receiver / offensive coordinator with the Buckeyes, just draft every Buckeyes wide receiver.
And there's more coming, don't you worry. There's another one this year. There's another one next year. There'll be somebody else for the next 10 years after that. But between, first of all, Jackson Smith and Jigba, one of the best in the business in Seattle, obviously.
He is having an unbelievable year.
But Emeka Egbuka right now, especially with this performance, he's right this minute after week 5, which there's a long way to go. He's Rookie of the Year.
Without question.
With no question whatsoever. I think he's
question.
maybe the 4th or 5th highest graded offensive rookie, but he's leading in all of the receiving categories, grade, yards, touchdowns, and just 7 catches, a $163 touchdown, a 2-point conversion, 86.9 receiving. Emeka Egbuka, when he was drafted, we were like, wait, what? The Bucs took a receiver. What are they? Why? Because they have so many, right? And now, again, I think we've said this before with your Jason Light. You just go, maybe the rule is just draft good football players. And it'll all fall into place eventually because Chris Godwin started to look better in this game, I thought. Mike Evans is hurt. Jalen McMillan's out for a while. The Bucs and the pass protection, everything else. And aside from Mayfield just working all of the magic, Ibuka's been the next best player on this team through the first 5 weeks. I actually, at this point, we've gone from, wow, why did they draft a guy who might be their 4th receiver this year to what in the world would their record be without him?
Yeah.
This
is a below 500 team without that one player.
Legitimately. And he is an absolute stud, making plays at all levels of the field, just far exceeding, especially early on, everything we thought for him. And again, maybe Jason Light's lesson is just, hey, that's position. If there's an Ohio State receiver on the board, just take him and let it fly, man. Just unbelievable stuff early on from Egbuka.
Mayfield with a 93.3 passing grade in this game. He's my most impressive. He had 3 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays. He's got 10 touchdowns and 1 interception now this season. 14 big-time throws. He has 9 turnover-worthy plays. And so when I sort of bring him into the MVP conversation, I will admit he has more turnover-worthy plays than the other MVP candidates. I think than Dak, Stafford, if you want to throw Goff into that mix as well. Like, Stafford's the one where Stafford and Mayfield have the most big-time throws through 5 weeks in the season. But I think Stafford's turnover-worthy plays is like 3, and Mayfield's is 9. So if you're going along those numbers, and that means that Stafford's passing grade is a lot higher than Mayfield's is as well. But just an unbelievable performance. They've now, 4 out of the last 5 weeks, have had comeback fourth-quarter wins. And Mayfield's a major catalyst as to why.
And what needs to be said for a handful of these quarterbacks we're talking about with this potential MVP race, pass blocking grade, all right? Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay is 24th. Working on it. They got Tristan Wirfs back. It's starting to look better.
But it's a good note.
The Rams are 28th. Dallas is 31st. You got some quarterbacks right now working through some really bad offensive line play. The Bucs, a lot of it is injuries. I should even say the Cowboys is in. I'll even throw Justin Herbert in that mix, because the only reason that Chargers offense is starting to slow down is because of all the O-line injuries. But look at some of these quarterbacks right now that are working through some terrible offensive lines. And even Sam Darnold, in his own right, is working through a lot of youth on theirs. They don't have the injuries, but they're an extremely young offensive line that's still kind of gelling together. Mm-hmm. I credit some of these guys, man, for playing through all the pressure. Dak Prescott's still leading the league in passing grade under pressure. Stafford and Mayfield are not far behind him. What they have done through adverse situations, and nobody can say they've done more through adverse situations this year, 4 fourth-quarter comebacks, than Baker Mayfield, and darn near a 5th one against Philly. Can you imagine the freak out if they were 5-0? They're not even healthy yet.
I know.
They don't have Mike Evans in this game. They don't have Luke Gedeke in this game, and yet they're 4-1. The Bucs getting through. It's the one thing they can sit there and say. Just go, boy, imagine if we get healthy.
Yep.
and where this
and
might
that's
get
the
to.
most disappointing for me was just the injuries on both sides, right? No Devon Witherspoon in this one, no Julian Love, no DeMarcus Lawrence. Bucks didn't have Mike Evans, they didn't have Jamel Dean, they didn't have Bucky Irving, Luke Gedeke, Cody Mock, they're on IR. So I hope we get this matchup again in the playoffs. I hope they're both fully healthy.
Oh, the Seahawks need Witherspoon out there badly. They've been getting by with Darion Kendrick and Josh Jobe and those guys. Those guys done a nice job for him, but Witherspoon makes that. We talked about it last week. He makes the entire thing work. They need him back in there 100%.
All right, we got 4 more games. Before we get to the next one, though, got to talk about some steaks or whatever you're throwing on the grill this fall, because the weather is turning and it is a fantastic time to break out the grill, whether it's meal prepping, whether it's tailgating, whether it's a random dinner on a Tuesday night and you need to pick me up, so you're throwing some red meat on the grill. Omaha Steaks. It's the best way to get some fantastic steaks delivered right to your house. It's the world's best steak, and you can get it. Enjoy UDSA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals. Plus, of course, the tailgating favorites. They got chicken wings as well, smash burgers, big deli-style Franks. Man, I'm getting hungry. Now during their Red Hot sale event, Dalton, you can get 50% off site-wide over at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners of this fine program get an extra $35 off with promo code PFF at checkout. Walt, I know you're in the chat. You're always talking about throwing some pork chops on the grill. This is your chance. Save 50% off. Get $35 off. Anybody out there who's listening, whether you're in the chat live or whether you're just listening after the fact, if you want some fantastic meats to put on the grill, this is the way to do it. So much convenience having high-quality steaks like Omaha Steaks on hand. It's just honestly, Dalton, I'll do this on a random Wednesday because I just want to be like, you know what? Middle of the week. Why not? Have something to look forward to. I'm a big food motivational guy.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when we have times when it's like, oh, like we're going to get wings tonight or something. It's like I think about that hours beforehand. I'm a big food guy. And so if I tell myself
Omaha's on the way,
I got a good steak at home. I got an Omaha steak that when I get back to the house, take it out, defrost, throw it on the grill. Makes my whole day better.
I had the pork chops last night.
Did you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I had last night.
There you go,
right,
baby.
I was living.
Love it. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite's backed by their 100% guarantee. Right now, it's the perfect time to stock up with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef, more marbling and exceptional flavor, and it's the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. 5 generations of uncompromised quality here. Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. Get fired up for all the fall grilling with Omaha Steaks. Visit Omaha Steaks for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sales event and get that extra $35 off using the promo code PFF at checkout. It's 50% off over at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. See the site for details.
Uncompromised quality. Kind of like that. Never heard that one.
No?
Yeah, I'm in on that.
All right. Are you going to make that like your own mantra, like for shows moving forward?
Might be.
Might have to.
Does the chat think we have uncompromised quality here?
Well, don't ask them that.
Boy.
We don't want to know the answer to that. But we can adopt it.
We don't want it in writing.
No, and then we could just put our head in the sand and we'll just be like, no, there's uncompromised quality here on this show.
Okay.
So we don't have to hear if there's not.
We don't have to compromise on it.
Speaking of uncompromised quality, I actually don't know how that's a segue here. The Tennessee Titans defeat the Arizona Cardinals 22-21 in one of the most gut-wrenching games. I mean, call your Cardinals fan friend if you have any just to check in on them today. They're feeling it. They're feeling it today. They're reeling. This one was tough. For as much as I loved watching Cam Ward get that first thrilling win, this one was tough knowing what was on the other side and why this came to be. We'll dig into all that. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Tennessee Titans who got their first dub of the season. Defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons was a game wrecker in this one, an 89.5. Wide receiver Calvin Ridley, an 82.2. Center Lloyd Cushenberry, a 78.8. Offensive guard Kevin Zeitler, a 76.8. L'Jarius Sneed with a 74.3. Quarterback Cam Ward, a 68.0, but it was really that second half in that fourth quarter that was a wild ride. On Arizona's side of things, their rookie cornerback, Will Johnson, with an 83.6. Tight end Trey McBride, a 79.2. Offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr., a 75.3. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. with a 71.4. Edge rusher Josh Sweat, a 70.1. And Kyler Murray in this game, a 64.4. Dalton, the stat that told the story here. What do we got?
I just have a crazy one, kind of, sort of. It goes with the comeback in the Titans and the way they played in the fourth quarter. Because let's start there. Is that finally, 4 3/4 games into it, the Titans' offense looked like something serviceable, right? 212 yards in the fourth quarter on the way to this big comeback victory. I just want a comparison real quick of what they've done previously to this. All right, 212 in the fourth quarter of this game. Remember that. The entirety of week 1, they had 133. The entirety of week 2, they had 252. Week 3, they had 282. Week 4, they had 175. And the first 3 quarters of this game, they had 115. 212 yards in this fourth quarter. That's why it was part of it. There's a lot of this that is, yes, the Cardinals gave this game away. Without question, it's as bad a collapse as you can have. But also, the Titans in this fourth quarter showed us more offensively on 3 drives than they had for 4 3/4 games before that.
You're right.
Which Cam Ward deserves a ton of credit for. As a team, in the fourth quarter, out of seemingly nowhere, the Titans had a 92.8 offensive grade with 7 explosive plays out of 24 total, and Cam Ward made 3 big-time throws. And I'll tell you what, the 2 throws, both throws to Calvin Ridley. There's the go ball at the end, but the deep shot over the Tampa 2 down the middle of the field.
What, the one to
also to Ridley.
The one throw to Ridley that was are you talking about the 50-yarder that's on a rope, a frozen rope?
Right down the middle of the field, yeah.
That is going to be a top 5 throw that we see all season.
Yeah.
I went back and I watched that one because I didn't really pay attention to it live. I just was like, oh, what a bomb down the field. That is, you want to talk about arm talent.
That was a 50-yard throw that did not get off the ground.
That was a rope
Yeah.
that was 50 yards. There are very few quarterbacks that do that.
Yeah.
And Cam Ward apparently is. Now, he had like a 3-step runway into it, but like, who cares? That was, I went back and watched that throw. It's going to be a top 5 throw that we see all season long. That was unbelievable.
And then followed it up with the winning throw to Ridley out on the go ball out on the sideline. Just, I mean, you can't, those two especially, you can't throw those footballs any better at all. And the Titans, give them credit, man. First and foremost, give them credit. They got their first win of the year, first win of Cam Ward's career. They took advantage of every opportunity in front of them, because I'm watching this game and I'm watching obviously the two fumbles from the Cardinals that either drive could have put the game away. Mm-hmm. But I'm going, okay, the Titans still have to do the hard part. They have to score, which for them has been extremely hard. They got shut out last week against Houston. Credit to their offense and Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley especially for just finding whatever they had in the tank to take advantage of the opportunity they were given.
So, Cam Ward in the fourth quarter, that was my stat that told the story here, because I'll focus on that. 93.2 passing grade in the fourth quarter. 13 for 18, 3 big-time throws. One of them I wanted to point out is probably a top 5 throw that I'm going to see.
There was a few times he did that at Miami last year.
Look, this game, where it was perfect, no. Should the Titans have even won? No. But now that they did, now that we got the opportunity to see what Cam was able to do in the fourth quarter, it was just a reminder. I think they got the right guy. I really do. I think this is if Cam Ward does not have success in Tennessee, I think it is a Tennessee Titans organizational failure. I do not think it's going to be a Cam. Now, again, I'm not saying that Cam is perfect. I'm not saying that he's the greatest quarterback prospect of all time. But you watch that fourth quarter and you go, we can win with this guy. Every team in the league would say we can win with this guy. Every single one. And it's up to Tennessee to now build a team around him.
And, shocking, by far their best pass protection day.
Dude, so I was going to point that out. My most impressive today. 76.6 team pass blocking grade, by far their best of any grade on the season. 80.1 pass blocking grade and only 5 pressures allowed. That's awesome. A 76.6 overall blocking grade and an 80.1 pass blocking grade. That's fantastic. And I think their success in the fourth quarter certainly went into those scores being what they were. But however it came about, it's cool for the Titans to get that win.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always good if you're Cam Ward, if you're a rookie quarterback, to get your first one. It doesn't matter. The result is the result, and let's be real. See, I know you don't. I know you like that. The standard is the standard. The result is the result. I know that's one of your favorites, but
the result is the result. I don't hate as much as the standard is the standard.
But the standard brings the result.
Only if it's the standard.
But it is.
Sure.
Anyway, no, I mean, look, if you give this guy a chance, if you can pass protect, and he was only under pressure 19% of the time, which is outstanding, considering in almost every other game it was 50.
And the Cardinals' defensive line is good.
Right. So, I mean, just give him a chance. Obviously, we know there's an offseason or two still that they have to work on this, but the offensive line being better is big time. And then they just finally found a way to capitalize and find some guys vertically down the field.
My most disappointing in this game, obviously the DeMarcado fumble at the goal line is the most disappointing.
Someday we'll learn.
You're going to hear plenty of people shout about that. We don't need to shout about it here on this show. What I actually do want to talk about as the most disappointing is Brian Callahan not going for 2 in the fourth quarter when they scored the touchdown. So Tony Pollard scores a touchdown. They go from down 21-6 to 21-12, okay? Joey Sly goes out for the extra point and he misses it. Independent of that, they should have gone for 2. And the reason why is because if they kick the extra point there and they make it, they are still down 8. They have to get a 2-point conversion at some point. So you would rather know early what you need to do to win the game. It doesn't give you any sort of advantage to wait. Like if you are looking at an exact situation like this and you say to yourself, hey, we're down 2 touchdowns, and on one of them we will have to convert a 2-point conversion. You go for it after the first touchdown that you score, because if you don't get it, then you need to know that ahead of time. Because you need to manage the clock properly, you need to manage the game properly, your tempo properly, because you have to get a 2-point conversion eventually. It doesn't do anything for you whether you don't get the 2-point conversion on the first touchdown, or if you have a thrilling, there's 0 seconds on the clock and you don't get the 2-point conversion at the very end of the game, you still lost. It doesn't matter. And you still lost because you couldn't convert the 2-point conversion. So you would rather know what you have to do by going for it early, if you know that you will have to complete it at least one time. So that to me was actually the most disappointing in the game, because that's another area where the Titans, amongst the penalties and the miscues and the time management, this is another decision with Brian Callahan and his staff where I go, you're not taking all of the edges that you could to shorten, or I should say widen the margin for error, or just be sharp on what you need to do to win the football game. So that was, amongst the fumbles and everything, that was the most disappointing for me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, and really, DeMarcado's fumble is going to get talked about the most because it's the most egregious one, but let's not forget 2 other ones here. One, early in the second half, when Hjalte Froholt just snapped the ball to Kyler Murray early, they messed up the snap count, and that went right off Murray's face mask, and that was the other way when the Cardinals were in the red zone and the Titans got the ball there. That's a moment they could have gone up 28-6. And it's going to be known now as the circus play of the year, but the Dadrian Taylor-Demerson interception that turned into the wackiest fumble we've seen in a while, and a Tyler Lockett recovery in the end zone. I mean, if he just goes to the ground and takes a knee there after the interception and holds onto the football, the game is over, right? So, I mean, there's really 3 of them. One of them is going to get more publicized than the rest. And let's be real here. The Cardinals scored their 3rd touchdown with, now these fumbles contribute to it, with just under 11 minutes to go in the second quarter. They did not score again. You leave the door open, these things can happen, especially if you're fumbling the ball all over the place. So, no, it was something of a comedy of errors here for the Cardinals, and the Titans took advantage, and now you're left with an Arizona team in a really darn good division. That much is clear through 5 weeks. The NFC West is really good. This Cardinals team is reeling now, and they have yet to have a game where they've played 60 minutes of good football, and they've been in close games in all 5 of them. But we were worried about this even at 2-0. Yeah, they're not playing great against the Saints and the Panthers. Well, now they're not playing great now against the Niners and the Seahawks and now even Tennessee. And this is where they've gotten to. They're at a bit of a tipping point when it comes to their season.
Have you seen their schedule moving forward?
I'll
tell you what it is. So
not great.
So they're sitting here at, what's their record?
2-3.
They're 2-3. Next week they're at Indianapolis. Then they host the Packers, at Dallas, at Seattle, host the Niners, host the Jaguars, go to Tampa to face the Buccaneers, Rams, Texans, Falcons, Bengals, Rams.
They are a handful of plays from being 5-0, and they're a handful of plays from being 0-5, and the relatively average result is probably the closest thing to what we have on this team.
They're a tough team to trust. They really are.
Yep.
Anything else before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Chargers, Commanders. Washington wins this game 27-10 in Jaden Daniels' triumphant return from that knee injury, which he says he's all good to go. All good to go. And obviously, the scoreboard reflected that with how Washington was able to play in this game. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Washington Commanders. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel at the top of the list with a 80.6. Edge rusher Von Miller, an 80.4. Defensive tackle Jerzon Newton with an 80.0. Defensive end Dorrance Armstrong, a 79.5. Mike Samers still a 77.4. Jaden Daniels in this one an 85.9. On the Chargers side, defensive tackle Tyler Tarr with a 93.1. Wide receiver Keenan Allen a 75.7. Running back Amari Hampton, who I believe has a high ankle sprain, is what I saw this morning, leaves this game with injury, 74.9. Safety Alohi Gilman with a 70.5. And then defensive tackle Justin Mboigbe with a 69.3. Justin Herbert, not a terrible day at the office, an 84.1, but obviously not enough to get it done here. Stat told the story, Dalton.
I'll go on the Commanders' side, and
Okay.
I think physically we've talked about this plenty, right, where the run game is really what balances this team out, right, especially without Terry McLaurin. They have to be good on the ground because when they're balanced, that's when they're the most dangerous as an offense. Now, Deebo Samuel had a great day. Luke McCaffrey with the catch down the middle of the field before halftime. First of all, unbelievable catch. Second of all, for the Commanders to play generally as not great as they did in the first half of this game and go into halftime tied after that catch, that was big-time stuff, I thought, and they really had the momentum going into halftime. But a big stat for me, Commanders, 145 rushing yards after contact. 74 of those were your guy, Bill Krosky-Merritt. You'll get into that. 58 of those were Jaden Daniels. All right, since the start of last year, the Commanders have 14 games where they have at least 100 rushing yards after contact. They are 13-1 in those games. And the one was actually last week against Atlanta where they just couldn't get a stop. 13-1 when they have at least 100 rushing yards after contact. When they get the run game going, they are really, really good. And since the start of last year, including the playoffs, they lead the league in yards after contact. They are third in yards after contact per carry. That's the difference. They have balance. They control the pace of the game. They get enough stops on defense, which after the first couple drives, obviously after the first quarter, they shut the Chargers out, which is great to see on their side. But the fact that they could, you're going to get on the other side of this, but that they could run the ball, especially with the physicality that they did, and then they could stop the run, two big elements there for the Commanders to win ball games.
Yeah, the run defense, which has been something that we have talked about for this team as not good, was good in this game. 73.6 run defense grade. Bobby Wagner had an elite run defense grade. Luvu and Kinlaw both above 65. I mean, when this team can stop the run and they can force you into less favorable passing situations, then that certainly helps out their secondary. So it just has felt as though the Commanders have not played a complete game on defense so far this season. There's always been something that's been struggling about whatever's been going on for them. And so them playing a lot better in run defense, I think, was huge in this game, especially because when you look at the Chargers, they're an interesting team because I wanted to break this down with them. The Chargers have faced 69 third downs this season. That's the third most in the NFL. They're 28th in EPA per play on early downs, but they're 25th in total rushing attempts on first and second down. So I wondered to myself, are the Chargers being too conservative and running the football early? And they're really not. They're 25th in total rushing attempts on first and second down. But it's when they pass the ball on early downs that they're actually not pushing the ball far enough. They're actually not completing and I guess, just attempting the passes that you would need to keep the EPA per play up to where not only are you keeping that number up and healthy and moving the football and converting first downs a little bit earlier, they keep getting in these third down situations. I mean, third most third down attempts in the NFL. That's not where you want to be. You want to be trying to convert these first downs a little bit earlier. And obviously with Omari and Hampton now hurt, that sort of now goes against that even more for them. And so it has felt like as much as the Chargers are controlling things, right, they haven't been super explosive on the early downs. And I think that has showed up in this game, in my opinion, where they were shut down a little bit more by this Washington front that was able to play better than what they have the last couple of games. But that is really something that stood out to me is just Washington's defense played a lot better, and I wanted to give them their credit. But on the Chargers side of things, this is a good football team that's not super explosive in the early downs. And I think that's something also to monitor moving forward with them.
Because as much as any team in football, and this was the fear when we first heard about Rashawn Slater.
And this is true. The offensive line absolutely goes into that.
This is the injury. I don't know that they can fix this because here's your lowest graded offensive lines in football, all right?
Okay.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Well, we'll get to that next game.
Miami, yeah.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, injuries. Chalk it up. They'll be higher than that by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers.
Yeah.
No Slater, no Alt.
No Alt.
Trey Pipkins, who was already a backup starting for this team, he got hurt in this game.
Yeah.
Mekhi Becton got hurt again in this game and now says he's going to put a cast on his hand and play with a cast next week. Bradley Bozeman is playing through a back injury, and Zion Johnson was their highest graded lineman in this game. Cool. This team, as much as any other, they are trying to find a way to weather this storm. Justin Herbert's doing his best. He is their highest graded player. He is succeeding in a lot of those third down situations that a lot of other quarterbacks would not. But much in the same way that Baker Mayfield has had to scratch and claw and dig through these offensive line injuries and all the injuries the Bucs are dealing with, Justin Herbert and this team, they're just going to have to find a way right now, especially at least until Joe Alt gets back and it stabilizes at tackle a bit. Because you look at some of the names playing on the Chargers O-line right now, no, they can't win with that.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
So I think their entire season right now comes down to can they? I don't know how long Joe Alt's supposed to be out because it's high ankle sprain with him too, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Out. When's he getting back in and when's he getting back 100%?
Right.
That's right now to me the key to their whole season. If he's out for some extended period of time and they look like this on offense, and that's the early down question you're asking is, hey, they can't run the ball. Why? No offensive line injuries. Hey, they're bottom 6 in pass blocking grade. Why? Injuries. It sucks. It sucks to put it like that because I would like to get into some big schematic thing. That's the fun part, but they don't have anybody up front right now.
Yeah.
The Slater injuries was already overhanging, and now you have the Alt injury and Becton and Pipkins and Bozeman playing at probably 80%. It's not good. They can't block anybody.
My most impressive, Bill Krosky-Merritt.
Of course it is. I intentionally knew not to take him
Big
because
Bill, baby.
I already knew. It's your guy.
I go back to watching him at the East-West Shrine Bowl and how he just looked different. Like, he just looked different. And you go and you look up his background. You go, okay, played at a little smaller school, goes to Arizona, plays in one game, and then the NCAA goes, no, you're not eligible to play anymore. Okay, so now there's like no tape on this guy, but very clearly when he was out there in the Shrine Bowl, he just looked like a future NFL player. In this game, 14 carries, 111 rushing yards, 74 yards after contact, 70.6 rushing grade. I mean, to be honest though, when I watched him, I felt like I was, and I don't think there was anything, within the rushing plays where I would have given him a little bit more credit here to like bump up his grade. But you watch the plays that he is in. And he has, at least yesterday, he had such a fantastic balance of playing fast but patient. And it's such a delicate balance in the NFL with running backs where you want to wait to set up your offensive lineman to block things the right way because there were a couple of plays where he needed to wait for linemen to get to the second level. He needed to wait for linemen to get to the outside for outside zone rushing attempts. There were a couple of plays where there were lead blockers that he needed to stay behind for a little bit. And the timing was so perfect from him in so many of those runs. I was just so impressed with how he was able to play even outside of the stat sheet. So Bill Krosky-Merritt was great for this team. And then the Chargers. This is back-to-back games now where they've really struggled with penalties. They had 14 penalties for 107 penalty yards against the Giants the week before. And they had 10 penalties for 85 yards this week. I mean, this is not characteristic of a Jim Harbaugh team. I believe I was reading this on Chargers.com, where in the first 21 games of Jim Harbaugh's tenure, they only had more than 8 penalties once, I believe. And now they've had it in back-to-back games now. So they're dealing with injuries, but they're also just kind of losing focus a little bit as a team. And they've got to tighten up a little bit here if they're going to kind of right the ship and manage these injuries.
With these O-line issues, they don't have the margin of error for mistakes like that, like penalties. They're not turning the ball over, really, but they just don't. They need to win on the margins right now because their offense is not going to be as good as it was in the first couple of weeks and kind of what we were projecting throughout the season because of these injuries up front. Again, they have to win in other ways on the margins, and their defense has to be better than it was in this game, especially against the run for them to win. But credit Washington. And on the other side of stopping the run, like you mentioned, he wasn't in the top 5 overall because, he doesn't cover quite like he used. Doesn't run like an open space like he used to. But, dude, give me Bobby Wagner, man. Any day of the week. If you ask me, at least just for run defense, which middle linebacker you want, the only other one I'm thinking about is Fred Warner. Because Bobby Wagner, I mean, you can just see why he's going to be a Hall of Famer when he's in there in the box, just seeing everything happening up front. Just an elite feel. You mentioned, too, about the receivers and the whole thing you went on about Stephon Diggs and just the veteran savvy. Bobby Wagner has that in just spades, and it shows up every single week. He's still putting up at 36 years old a 90 run defense grade in a game like this. I mean, just unbelievable stuff from him. So, again, I know overall it's dragged down. I think he gave up he was charted with 6 or 7 catches in coverage, which I go, okay, he's not going to cover Ladd McConkey in open space. I'm aware of that, but still an elite player on the inside. Just unbelievable stuff.
Anything else? We're going to go to the next one.
Nope.
Lions and Bengals. Next game that we're getting. This is the last game that we're talking about here from the Sunday slate. Detroit wins this one 37-24. It was not as close as the final score indicated there. The top 5 graded players that we had for the Detroit Lions in this one: linebacker Jack Campbell with a 92.8, edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Huntington and Aiden Hutchinson in the same league is messing me up. Aiden Hutchinson, 91.6 overall grade. Offensive guard Christian Mahogany with an 85.9. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, an 85.6. And then offensive tackle Penei Sewell, an 84.4. Jared Goff in this one, a 68.2. To be honest with you, wasn't asked to do a lot. So that's why you don't see his grades that high above average, because he just was not asked to do a lot in this game. Edge rusher Trey Hendrickson was the top man for the Bengals on the other side with a 91.5. Wide receiver Jamar Chase, a 79.1. Cornerback DJ Turner, a 72.9. Wide receiver Andre Yosivas with a 72.7. And then defensive tackle BJ Hill, a 70.2. Jake Browning in this game, 38.8. Dalton Sad told the story.
You want me to just do it all at once? I can get through this one pretty quickly if you want.
Go ahead.
I don't have even a most disappointing, because this is about how this game was supposed to go. So nothing really disappointed me here. I would say if you're in the Cincinnati front office and you are looking for more scouts or things of that nature, you should probably make some calls to Detroit and find out how they built that team, or if anybody's looking for a pay raise, because you look at the difference. It's just the difference walking into this game. More than Jared Goff, more than Amon-Ra St. Brown and the weapons, more than even Joe Burrow's injury and Burrow not playing. O-line, D-line. Here we go. Offensive line grades in this game. Lions, 77.5. Bengals, 52.9. Defensive line grades. Lions, 86.4. Headlined by Hutchinson there. Bengals, 46.5. And Hendrickson's obviously the only guy they have, and I'm going to get something on that in a second. This is just the story of one team that's an elite trench team, and they have been for 5 years, and another that has not been anything close to it on either side of the ball, other than one guy, for the better part of 5 or 6 years. This Detroit team, we know what Cincinnati is at this point. They're just, because of this, they're not going to win very many games, and they don't have Joe Burrow to make up for it. This Detroit team, it's funny, like doing the NFL and college side, because I'm watching this game and even last week's game a bit against Cleveland. I feel like I'm watching the same game as I do every Saturday with the Miami Hurricanes, which for those who don't watch college or don't tune in, it's the same thing. It's one of the best O-lines in the league. It's one of the best D-lines in the league. And the quarterback, despite it being a 68 grade, like you mentioned, Jared Goff still played a really good game. He just gets to do it his way. He releases it quickly. He finds the open guy. Get the football out. I got a million athletes on the outside who can win. I got 2 good backs who could win. I feel like I'm watching the same game right now with these 2 teams, with the Miami Hurricanes at the college level. And funny enough, Max has compared Carson Beck to Jared Goff a million times over.
Right.
So, yeah, there you go. And the Lions at the NFL level, where it's just like they have such a floor. And then you go back and look at the one game they lost. You need a team with the caliber of defensive linemen and trench play, because the Packers' offensive line is pretty good when healthy. You need a team with the caliber of trench play like the Packers have to keep up with this Lions team. And the teams that don't have that, those other 4 teams the Lions have played so far, they've gotten their doors blown off them because of it. The Lions, no matter who's calling the plays or anything like that, O-line, D-line, absolutely dominant.
Yep. Who's saying this in the chat? Desert Sky saying this in the chat. Goff with another 80-plus completion game, 150-plus quarterback rating, 10-plus yards per attempt, and he's a 68. You guys got to understand, like, Goff, a 68 is above average. We told you that the average is a 60, but Goff didn't do anything that was incredible in this game. He didn't turn the ball over. He was fine. He was exactly what they needed him to be. He had no turnover-worthy plays. He also had no big-time throws. If you go back and you watch a lot of those throws, they're wide-open players, and they're wide open for the NFL. If you got a yard or 2 of separation from a defender, that's wide open. Basically, Jared Goff's entire day was wide-open passes. Wide-open passes. The play design's operating the way that it should. The play action's operating the way that it should. Jared Goff was extremely decisive. And because of that, there's just not a lot of difficult throws. And so I think that people look at that and they want Jared Goff to have like an elite 90 grade or something like that. He just wasn't asked to do that. Now, again, that's not a 68 grade from Goff in this game. We're not saying that Goff was bad. That's not the point of the grade. He just wasn't asked to do super difficult things. And if he's not asked to do super difficult things and he doesn't do super difficult things, then his grade's not going to be super high. It was 68 is well above the average of just a 60 and replaceable. He had some nice throws in this game, but when you're not asked to do difficult things, it's hard to have your grade skyrocket. So that's sort of I know that Lions fans get mad at us a lot because we don't have Jared Goff with this really high grade all the time, and it's just because Goff, there's a lot of instances where the offense is operating so well, it actually takes away from what would be the individual Jared Goff component of the process there. And we're not saying that every quarterback could do it. Obviously, he's in a fantastic situation in a fantastic spot, but it's a game-by-game situation. What the PFF grades are trying to do is they're trying to individualize what a player is doing every single game. So I just wanted to say that because I know that we get a lot of talk about Jared Goff's grades, and obviously he played very well in this one, but it wasn't a difficult game from him. He did what he was supposed to do. He did a little bit better than the average, even having a couple of throws that were a little bit tighter, but he was great in this game. Jared Goff was good in this game. Like, I'm kind of tired of talking about it.
No, it's understanding the assignment. No, I mean, I get it. Oh, he went out there in completion percentage, and he did everything he was asked to do. It just wasn't overwhelmingly difficult. You're right. I mean, not that we can sit here and say playing quarterback's easy, but against this defense and the quality of throw, he only completed 3 throws beyond 10 air yards, right? So and we're not trying to knock Jared Goff. He had
I know.
I think
right.
You put it the best way you could. And actually, funny enough, this is the same thing that I get with Carson Beck in Miami. Why is he not the highest graded quarterback in the country? He does what's asked of him.
Yeah.
And he does it, and he did it what it was asked of him at an A+ level. He did. There's just not, when you watch him and then you watch, say, some of the throws that Drake May or Jaden Daniels made this week, tell me which one then gets, the higher. And look, there's nothing. Jared Goff did nothing wrong with this week. He only had one negatively graded throw the entire day. Right. So right. I'm like, he did. That needs to be said too. That a lack of negatives week to week for a quarterback is actually more stable to predict. So you know what you're getting out of Jared Goff. This we can sit here and tell you the grade. It's solid. It's not overwhelmingly flashy. Gets the job done. game like this, you don't need him to sit there and grade a 95.
Yeah. And
No.
but in Desert Sky Guy in the chat is like going back and forth with us. He wasn't trying to like dunk on the grades or anything like that. And I didn't mean for my response to like come off as attitude to you as well. I just sort of the Jared Goff thing is I feel like there's and I'm not saying that Desert Sky is one of these people. Very clearly he's not in the chat, but I feel like there are a lot of people who like want to hear the answer to the Jared Goff grades, but then like don't actually want to hear the answer to the Jared Goff grades when we explain it.
No, he was solid. That's my answer.
He was solid, and the Bengals defense did not force him into making individual difficult throws in this game. There are plenty of other games that Jared Goff has played where he has been an individual catalyst with phenomenal throws himself, in which he is graded as an elite quarterback. So those grades are obviously graded differently because we are grading every single grade and every single throw and every single play on an individual performance of how you played there. So some game scripts are just not built for you to have an elite passing grade. This is one of those days for Jared Goff, and that doesn't mean that he's bad whatsoever. Anyways, I'm going to go to the Cincinnati side of things. Dalton, I got some stats for you. You ready for this?
Oh, boy.
They're about the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line.
Oh, boy.
Because I didn't think that it was enough to just say that the Bengals offensive line was bad, because we do that a lot. The Cincinnati Bengals had a 47.7 overall blocking grade in this game. That is the 5th time out of 5 games that they have recorded a single game team blocking grade below 60. So they have not had a team blocking grade above 60 yet this year. Since the start of last season, they have only recorded a team blocking grade above 65 3 times. Since Joe Burrow was drafted, they have only recorded a 65 or above team blocking grade in 28 of their 89 games, with only 11 of them coming over the last 3 years. Most of those good numbers come in the 2021 and 2022 years when they were double-digit win teams. This team has actively gotten worse on the offensive line, in which the offensive line was already a negative narrative of why they did not win the Super Bowl. They have only gotten worse every single year since then.
Yep.
They have failed. They have absolutely failed. They failed Burrow. They've even, the team building, now I don't know how much Zach Taylor goes into it, but I don't think that Zach Taylor's a perfect head coach by any means. But what are you going to do behind this offensive line? Because it's not win, certainly not consistently. So until that somehow gets fixed aggressively, Joe Burrow won't even save this team. So that's my stat that told the story.
No arguments here on that one. I'll tell you what, the guy who tore it up this week, as he's tearing it up every week, Trev, I might have just been a year early on Aiden Hutchinson, man.
Oh, for defensive player of the year?
He is just...
I should have bet it. You're a coward.
And I know this was the most obvious matchup of the week, with the, at least I should say mismatch of the week. But Aiden Hutchinson, 9 more pressures. 3 more pressures on top of that were negated by a penalty. Had a sack, forced fumble, 28% pass rush win rate. Does it start to feel like, and I know there's other great candidates, Fred Warner's great, we got some other pass rushers, but does it not start to feel like that maybe this Defensive Player of the Year race actually just comes down to this NFC North race? And we do kind of the MVP thing where it's either going to be Hutchinson or Parsons. And whoever wins this division is going to get it.
Yeah,
I mean, I know Myles Garrett's always in it. How about Will Anderson? I'm looking at this right now. Will Anderson.
Well, Anderson's nuts.
How about a 32% pass rush win rate? That's your guy right there, isn't it?
That's who I picked.
Boy.
Yeah.
But you look at...
He's cooking.
Anderson, Garrett, Parsons, Hutchinson. Daniil Hunter's right there too, because of course he is. But I mean, Hutchinson and Parsons being in this same division, boy, if I'm those other 2 teams, I'm kind of irritated that I have to block these guys. I'm being honest with you, man. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson looks every bit like he did last year before he got hurt. First of all, it's just great to see. But I mean, he's the on top of the health of the entire rest of the defense. But he was always the X factor in this. Is if we have Aiden Hutchinson, we can pressure anybody. And they couldn't do that after he got hurt last year.
And just to make sure that Lions fans know that I don't hate them, giving them their respect, their bounce back has been incredible after week 1. It really, not only after week 1, but losing both of your coordinators, and then obviously going down to your divisional opponent, which had all the juice to start the season. They go 0-1 in that game. They don't look like the same Lions that we've seen, even for when they have faltered in years past. They have the number 1 EPA per play in the NFL since week 2. I mean, they have just absolutely bounced back, and they are on cruise control in Dan Campbell's offense, which I've been reminded by many Lions fans that it's always been Dan Campbell's offense and not Ben Johnson's. But they look good, and they're the best offense in the NFL right now. Most disappointing for me outside of the Bengals' offensive line, though, T. Higgins, through 5 games, has 158 receiving yards, just a 66.8 receiving grade. I get it. We just talked about the offensive lines being catalyst why. I get it. Jake Browning's the quarterback. I know. I'd still like more from a guy who is, top 10 paid wide receiver in the NFL?
Somewhere in there.
At least?
Yeah, I have a hard time with that just because, I mean, they're struggling to block, and then this can't block us all. I know. I don't want to be too hypocritical with it, but when I look at that, I watch these Bengals games and I go like, Jamar still gets his to an extent, but T doesn't. And I'm just like, I'd like a little bit more from that guy. I'd like a little bit more production. Yeah.
So it's just something that I'm shouting out.
Two quick things real quick. You just mentioned the comeback here for the Lions. Looks 4 short weeks later, they're in first place. That's big time, right? And on the Bengals side, one more thing. Do we start talking about trades?
For who?
The Bengals.
Sure.
And like I now that Tyreek Hill is out for the year, because that was the biggest name we thought was going to maybe get dealt. Mm-hmm. I got to think Trey Hendrickson is number 1 on a lot of teams.
No question.
Like, they got to be. I know the Bengals are still only 2-3, and they're going to sit there and go, okay, we can win ball games. But 2-3 weeks from now, that might look a lot different.
Yep.
And I would sit here if I'm, there's almost every contender, I'm sitting here going, I need Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
What do I get for that guy as a rental?
Yeah. Before we move on, Desert Sky saying in the chat again, he's like, I didn't mean for it to sound like it was bashing or belittling y'all or the grades. Really appreciate you guys.
Listen, as we
we're all
know,
good, brother. I promise.
As we know, we are great at starting arguments.
Yes.
We do it all the time.
Yes.
Don't worry.
We are all good. We appreciate you. We appreciate you watching and listening. And I appreciate you voicing your opinion, getting in the chat. Obviously, it gives us something to talk about here on the show. So we're all good. I promise. We appreciate you. We really do. All right, Thursday Night Football, turning the clock back. San Francisco wins this game. Holy cow, San Francisco wins this game. Didn't think I'd say that, really didn't. 26-23, but it just goes to show Kyle Shanahan and divisional games. Divisional games are always just going to be close.
I stand by it no matter what else happens. I don't care what happens with anybody else. If this Niner team makes the playoffs, he has to win Coach of the Year. I don't care what happens elsewhere.
You might be right. You really do. Top 5 graded players. Let's do that. Let's start with that. Top 5 graded players that we have for the San Francisco 49ers defensive tackle. Alfred Collins at the top of the list.
He's still on the board, though.
It's incredible that he's still on the board. Shout out to NFLSE. 85.0 overall grade in this one. Wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, an 80.6. Linebacker Fred Warner, a 78.1. Running back Christian McCaffrey, a 67.8. Offensive tackle Trent Williams, a 65.7. And then Mac Jones, a 66.5. On the Raiders side of things, defensive tackle Poona Ford, an 89.2. Linebacker Omar Spates, an 81.8. Edge rusher Byron Young, a 79.5. Wide receiver Puka Nacua, 79.3. And then offensive guard Justin Deitch with a 79.1. Matthew Stafford in this one, an 80.6. Stat that told the story, Dalton. What do we got?
Mac Jones, average time to throw.
Yep.
Trev, I'm going to start getting shirts made. If your line can't protect you, protect yourself. Mac Jones did that at an absolute ace level in this game.
Are you going to put the Mac Jones part on there too, or does it stop before then?
We'll see. We'll think about it because I talk about a lot of.
Feels a little bit wordy.
I could get Mac Jones. Jared Goff would be in that mix.
Okay.
Joe Burrow's in that mix.
Sure.
Maybe Carson Beck. That's the
Maybe
college.
It's different colored shirts. And then on the back, it's just, you're just replacing.
It's got to be the front. If your line can't protect you, and then just put it right on the back, protect yourself.
Nice.
We got it. Okay, I got to get a shirt person. Here we go. All right. Anyway, 2.33.
I know a guy.
You always know a guy. You know a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's true.
It's good.
It's true.
2.33 average time to throw for Mac Jones in this game.
Pretty nuts.
Only against this.
Two is jealous.
Against this Rams defensive line, which is top 3, 4 in football, maybe number 1. We'll see. 1 sack taken, and that was on the second to last offensive play of the game, deep into overtime. All right? Completed 28 out of 32 throws under 10 yards. It was, yes, is it dink and dunk? Is it, very conservative and just the way they have to do it because it's Mac Jones and you're playing this Rams defense? Yes. Did it work and win them a ball game? Yes. 86 plays the 49ers ran. Only 4 negative plays out of 86. Unbelievable stuff. Kyle Shanahan, his mantra, just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If you're moving forward,
Yeah.
what are you moving towards? The end zone, right? It's just a masterclass from both of them. And Mac Jones and his comfort level in this offense, despite the Rams D-line winning the battle up front. They didn't run the ball particularly well against that same defense. No Ayuk, no Jennings, no Kittle, no Pearsall. But we have Mac Jones, and we get rid of the football. It's unbelievable stuff. I mean, it's just the level of coaching and even quarterback play. And Mac Jones, what was his grade here again? 66.5.
Yeah.
Similar reason to why Mac Jones isn't like a 90, even though this was a great performance. It is. It's dink and dunk and protecting himself with quick throws, so those don't get as highly graded, right? But it's just a masterclass from Shanahan on, okay, how are we going to find a way to win this football game with my entire starting offense basically out of this game? Just terrific stuff. It really was. And Mac Jones, Fred Warner is always the guy, but Mac Jones is the MVP right now, this 49er team.
Yeah, I mean, the confidence in which he played was unbelievable in this game. You go watch it, and it's not like it's the most difficult throws in the world, but it's coming out of his hands so quickly. And it's not like they're open because he sort of throws it open, but in this game specifically, Mac Jones, there was one play in particular where he threw the ball over the middle. And I can't remember what wide receiver it was. Somebody was running over the middle, and it was right in between 2 defenders. And Mac Jones threw it to the spot. And the wide receiver was ahead of where the ball was going to be. But if he threw it to the wide receiver, it would have been picked. But he threw it to the spot. And so you watch that play in particular, and it's an incompletion. And I was impressed by the incompletion because I go, he did exactly what he was supposed to do on that play. He threw the ball exactly where it was supposed to go, and he said, okay, either my guy catches it or it's hitting the ground. And it hit the ground. And the ball, he was throwing to a spot so much more than he was throwing to receivers in that game. Whether it was posts, slants, out routes, everything. And he was doing it at such a high level. I thought this was a really nice performance from Mac Jones. So I agree completely. The confidence that he was playing at was amazing. Most impressive, of course, Alfred Collins. I have to shout it out. 92.1 run defense grade, especially the forced fumble at the end of that game. That was massive for them, ultimately winning that one. So I had to shout him out there. Disappointing. I agree with you on the most disappointing here. The running backs, just the fumble at the goal line from Kyren Williams. I give the credit to Alfred Collins, but obviously fumbling at the goal line is not great. Corum dropping the pitch, all of that. It's just the running back performances I feel like was the most disappointing in a game that there was a lot to like. This was a very entertaining game. It was a lot of fun down to the very end, and so there was not a lot of disappointing in this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, the fumbles are an issue for Kyren Williams. He had 6 last year. I think he's already got 3, I want to say it is, this year. And at the 1-yard line, I mean, you're talking about going in to score and take a lead with your pass rush and under the 2-minute warning. I mean, that could be the difference in the ball game right there, right? And we saw that in the playoffs from Kyren Williams. His fumble was what turned that playoff game in Philly's favor back in January. So it's something that's got to get hashed out. And the Rams did make their share of mistakes, especially to give the Niners an early lead, and then even it's just kind of continued. Not was it every single play? No, but there was enough of them that really let the Niners just get out ahead and then finish it off in overtime. And then real quick, most impressive of all the receivers that we say are out,
Kendrick Bourne. Yeah.
The night he had, after dropping 3 balls last week, the third one especially that really hurt him, and to come back with 10 catches for $142 and 8 first downs out of those 10 catches, it's ridiculous. Somebody had to step up with every receiver in San Francisco out this week.
Yeah.
And Kendrick Bourne, old friend, that was the guy right there. He was unbelievable.
He was indeed. And we got a fun one on Thursday Night Football coming up too. Eagles-Giants. The divisional matchup. Thursday Night Football.
Who's bouncing back?
Both
of them with tough losses.
By the way, Desert Sky gave us a $10 super chat. We really appreciate it. Like we said, there is no hard feelings at all whatsoever. We appreciate you getting the show. We also very much appreciate the super chat. We appreciate everybody who watched this show and got it on the chat live. Appreciate you guys. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, now is a great time to get one. PFF NFL Show 25. Use that promo code. You get 25% off over at subscribe.pff.com. You can see all of the data that we talked about here on this show and so much more as well. It's a fantastic resource. Of course, we're going to say that, but we really do believe it because it's how we come up with the information and the data for the show. Dalton, how far are we into the college preview? How many more games you got?
Eight more. I got to get notes. Out of 13, I got 5 done yesterday.
Okay.
Feel good about that.
Godspeed. Everybody, make sure that you watch the college football show this week. 13 games they're previewing for an incredible college football slate coming up this weekend. 13. That's the most, right? Most you've ever had in a single show?
We did 12 a couple of weeks ago. Got to find something on your Florida Gators, of course, because
of course they
won. Now
big
we got to
dub,
preview them against A&M this week, and now they're going to be the Dragon Slayer like they were last year, are they?
I don't know about that, but I'll take the win over Texas. I will. I don't know. We'll see about Texas A&M, but everybody go follow the College Football Channel if you guys don't already. At 4:30 today, over on the NFL Stock Exchange channel, we are going to be going live for a new mock draft with the updated draft order, updated team needs that I updated on the mock draft simulator last night, and the updated big boards from myself and Connor. So we'll be running through that. If you guys are still at work or bored or whatever and you want to get it on the chat there, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. So in about a half an hour, we can see you guys over there. That's it for us for the review show here, but we will be back on Wednesday as we always are. Myself and Dalton, of course, Teron Armstead as well, previewing every single game in Week 6 in the NFL. So for Dalton, I'm Trevor saying thank you guys once again so much for watching the PFF NFL show. See you guys on Wednesday.